Good morning, everyone. I will start the board meeting now since it is 10 o'clock and we've had a pause in people joining us. So I will start the meeting with, first of all, thank you for attending, and secondly, apologies for this meeting we'll record. I'll just wait till Kathleen's in. Thank you. Apologies for the meeting. I have from the board, David Blackburn and Mark Burrell and Anne Bell. I believe that's all from the board. And also Paul Baku is unable to attend today. Okay, thank you. Is that another one coming in, another apology? No, can everyone be on mute then if they're not being asked to speak? Thank you. Can I have any declarations of interest today, please? Hussein, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, colleagues. It's a transparency statement in respect of item 10, psychology. I'm a member of the Diverse Experiences Advisory Panel, which is a named partner in the Scottish Government's Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy, and I'm also the lived experience representative on the Scottish Government's Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy Leadership Board, which has oversight of issues including those contained within the paper. So this is merely a transparency statement in that regard. I don't feel I need to leave for the item, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hussein. And I have Sandy, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just to declare my role as Chair of the Mental Welfare Commission.
Thank you, Sandy. And Ian, please.
Thanks, Alison. In relation to 6.3 and elsewhere, where there's mention of the IGB and/or Aberdeen City Council, I am a member of Aberdeen City Council. Having considered the objective test, I don't believe I have a declarable interest, so this is a transparency statement.
Thank you, Ian, and I'll do likewise in relation to Aberdeenshire Council. Thank you very much. Okay, I can't see any other declarations of interest or transparency statements, so we will move on to my formal welcome to you now on the board. And good morning to you all, and to members of the public and to guests and of course colleagues attending today. This is our February meeting of the NHS Board, which is our first meeting of 2026. As always, I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us, whether here in person or remotely, and for your continued interest in the work of the board and the services NHS Grampian provides to communities across the region. Today's agenda reflects both the scale and complexity of the challenges we are navigating as a health and care system, alongside the progress that is being made through partnership and innovation and sustained effort. We will receive a number of reports that speak to our system-wide position, including ongoing operational pressures, but at the same time, we are beginning to see the tangible impact of new and expanded models of care and of focused operational improvement initiatives that are starting to deliver visible benefit. It is important, though, that as a board, we continue to recognise the reality of these pressures on both patients and staff, while also maintaining momentum and acknowledging positive indicators that provide assurance on our direction of travel. Earlier this month, I visited the emergency department alongside fellow non-executive members to see firsthand how the unscheduled care plan is being implemented. What we observed was a strong sense of shared purpose and commitment among staff, as well as early signs of progress from initiatives such as 10 discharges before 10 a.m. and front door pathway changes. These efforts are beginning to translate into real operational improvements, including reduced ambulance turnaround times, fewer prolonged waits in emergency departments, and more beds becoming available earlier in the day. So while there remains a clear need for sustained focus on performance, including reducing those 4-hour waits, it was encouraging to see practical changes making a difference for patients and for staff alike. I have also had the opportunity to visit a number of services in recent weeks, each of which highlighted different but equally important aspects of our work. At Aberdeen Maternity Hospital, I saw the neonatal intensive care unit and the powerful impact of a family integrated service model where parents are truly placed at the heart of their baby's care. I also witnessed the compassion, the dignity and the partnership working among staff, which was evident throughout the unit. During a separate visit to maternity services just before Christmas, I also heard about the important work underway to strengthen civility and culture. It would therefore be remiss of me not to mention the continued importance of speaking up and creating a culture where people feel listened to and respected. Whether concerns are raised by staff, patients or families, they provide an opportunity to learn, to improve and to prevent harm. This is a fundamental point to patient safety, to staff well-being and to continuous improvement. NHS Grampian continues to encourage openness and honesty at every level of the organisation, and I would encourage anyone who has a concern to use the routes available to them. By listening, learning and acting together, we strengthen trust and ensure that our services continue to improve for the people of Grampian. In January, I attended the first Women's Health Community Appointment Day at the Aberdeen City Vaccination and Wellbeing Hub, an event that demonstrated the very best of partnership working and person-centred design. NHS services worked alongside local authorities, third sector partners and women from our communities to create a welcoming non-clinical space focused on what really matters to individuals. I will leave it to Laura, our Chief Executive, whose report reflects on this event, to expand further, but suffice to say that there is a growing interest in this model from national partners and other health boards, which I think speaks to its effectiveness and to the leadership being shown here in Grampian. I would also like to briefly reflect on the board risk seminar held in January, which provided a valuable opportunity for the board to step back and focus on assurance, risk and our wider system context. Our discussion was thoughtful, open and constructive, particularly in relation to how assurance aligns with our strategic priorities, improvement journey and sits within the broader national and subnational landscape. The seminar concluded with a clear sense of shared understanding and direction, including agreed next steps to strengthen our board assurance plan and improve the quality and consistency of our work. The importance of partnership remains a recurring theme for the board and across the organisation. So in summing up, before we move to today's substantive agenda items, I would like to highlight an important partnership event developed with the Aberdeen and Grampian Chamber of Commerce and colleagues across the public and private sectors, which is scheduled to take place in March. Entitled The Business of Health, the theme of the event recognises a simple but vital truth. A healthy workforce underpins a productive, resilient and competitive economy. As demand on health services grows and workforce pressures continue, the relationship between health, well-being and economic performance has never been more critical. The event will reflect how, through partnership, we are creating space for meaningful dialogue with employers about how preventative approaches, workplace well-being and promoting early intervention can reduce absence, support retention and improve long-term outcomes for individuals and organisations alike. It reflects our commitment to working beyond traditional organisational boundaries and to recognising that health is everyone's business, not just the NHS. Thank you very much for listening to me there. Thank you. Okay, we will now turn to the substantive agenda and we will turn to the minutes of the meeting on the 11th of December. Can we agree those minutes as a correct record, please? Okay, thank you. Can I come in with one amendment? There's an item in the action tracker on page 5, which has a word escaped into the minutes that shouldn't be there, the word private relating to primary care, and obviously that's a superfluous word. So can we just make sure we take that word private out? It's on page 5 of section 4.1. And I think that's the only amendment I need to bring up. Everyone else is happy. I saw nods as well. Thank you. So we agreed the minutes with that very slight word taken out from the minutes. Thank you. Okay, can we turn then to the action tracker? Can we note the actions on the action tracker that are completed? John, would you like to come in, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just on page 20 of the pack, there's reference to the GP visioning that will come up, and I've noticed that item's going to be closed off. So it's just an ask that the original question, which was about a clear understanding of demand, is actually part of what is brought forward at that seminar, and indeed there's to be a briefing with IJBs. So if chief officers who are on the call can recognise that, please, and look forward to hearing about the demand equation on that. So that's just an ask. And then a question was on the last item, page 22. That's not shown as being completed. So will we be getting further information on that? Just want to get that clarified, please.
Yeah,
Thanks.
sorry, John, can you just tell us what that item is on page 22, the last one?
Let me just
Oh,
scroll to it. It's the ongoing monitoring of, and partnership engagement, including with councils and clear across cross-system working.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry, that is completed on there. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up here then. Sorry. Yeah, just leave it. Let me just go back and check which one.
Right, I'll come back to you. I'll come back with you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you. On the first one, Fiona, you're on the call, I see. Can you comment on John's comment about GP visioning, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair. And happy to make sure that we get that information, John, when we share it with, when we give the formal update about the GP vision work as we transition to our primary care board. I'll make sure that information is contained. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. And while we're waiting for John to come back, Derek, please.
I may be picking up on John's point. On page 22, the very last one is about complaints. And it said, this data is not collected nationally and is only available through review of other boards' annual feedback and complaints reports. But my question is, are we doing that or are we not going to bother?
Yeah, I was going to bring that one up myself on that one. And I was going to suggest that we've done what we can do as a board, because if the information is not collected nationally, we're not in a position to do that ourselves. But June, do you want to come in?
Yeah, so the reports are done retrospectively, so they're a year out of date. So we can go back and take every single person's board data and pull it from their annual reports, but it's not recent data, if you like. It's not collected on a monthly or a 6 monthly basis that we have it available to us. So just really to make that clear, we do put it in our own annual report every year, what it has been previously. So that's where it's, I think the question on the day was, do we have current data, which we don't have? Thanks.
Okay, I mean, I was going to suggest that we've investigated what's available at the time, and so in my mind, we've done what we can do, but we can't actually go any further because the current data is not available to us. I don't know what you feel about that, Derek.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I just thought it didn't tell us what we were going to do. So thanks.
Yeah, that was on my list to bring up as well for that reason. John, is that the one you were going to come back to as well?
That is exactly it. And the question is the last one on that page at 22.
Okay.
Yes, I do wonder though whether it would be possible to pick a couple of similar sized boards and just compare. But that, I mean, I'll leave it up to obviously the executives to decide what to do. It does seem a possibility to do that, even though it's in retrospect, just to see if there's a marked difference.
Okay,
I don't think we have to have it reported back to us.
No, can we agree that the action as originally written in the action track has been done because we've investigated what's possible? So we, from our point of view, we can close off that action, even though it's not completed as such. We can close it off because we've done what we can, and just leave that thought with execs that if they can benchmark on a monthly basis with a couple of peer boards, I suppose, boards similar to us, that would be helpful as well. But we'll leave that to the executives as part of their planning. Is that agreeable to everybody? Thank you very much for that one. Anyone else want to bring anything out on the action tracker? The other one I was going to bring out was the one on from 11th to 12th 2025 about the subnational planning, thinking whether, and the clinical and staff side engagement, have we completed the action in terms of what we can do in NHS Grampian ourselves on that one, and everything else is for somewhere for the national staff side and colleagues. Laura, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. I think a few things on this one. As you know, there are conversations and discussions happening nationally with our unions and staff side colleagues. Those discussions are ongoing and not concluded presently. But from a local perspective, the answer is yes, we're doing absolutely everything we can in the meantime. So executive clinical directors are involved in the subnational planning work. We'll expand on that a little later on the agenda. And also we have standing agenda items on a number of meetings within the organisation, including our area clinical forums. So we're giving regular updates to colleagues in as much detail as we can, as well as sharing communications across the organisation on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. That's as I thought, and I appreciate all the work done into that, Laura. Really, thank you for that. So, can we say that action is completed from an NHS Grampian point of view? Would that be a fair thing to do? I see Laura nodding. I can't see anyone else nodding. Is that fair? Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. So we'll say it's completed from what NHS Grampian can do on that one. Thank you. And I think that's all the issues to raise from the action tracker. So we agree everything else that's on the action tracker there, and move on then to item 5, the Chief Executive's report. I'll pass to Laura, please. Laura.
Thank you, Chair. And again, good morning, everyone. I'll take my paper as read and draw the board's attention to 4 key areas in the paper. Mindful we've got other agenda items coming up, including a detailed performance report a little later in the meeting. So I want to start by recognising and acknowledging it's been a hugely challenging start to the year, not least because of the impact of the weather in January time, but also the significant demand on our services, particularly our emergency services. But also at this stage, just to reiterate my thanks and appreciation to staff and partners across the system, because we've seen so many colleagues going above and beyond. We've seen many examples of outstanding teamwork, system working and multi-agency working. So thank you again from me to our partners, but to all of our staff. Moving on and turning my attention to the Assurance Board, which is a Scottish Government chaired meeting. That board continues to meet fortnightly. I believe personally this frequency and pace is supporting our improvements, which I'll touch on in a few moments. And the meetings from my perspective continue to be nothing other than constructive and supportive in equal measure. The meetings to date have focused on the 3 priority areas, which I'll come on to in a few moments, but I'm pleased that from January's meeting, the focus shifted also to culture, governance and leadership. And I think recognising that these items and areas underpin our improvements, for me, that's a really important step forward in terms of the focus of that board expanding from January onwards. The improvement plan that we will return to later on this agenda, again, is a regular feature at the Assurance Board. And pleased to say there's early discussions with our Scottish Government colleagues around the de-escalation criteria for the board. So early stages, but we're very clear we want and need and will indeed own this as a board. So there's some drafts underway that we've discussed initially as a full board. The executive team have done some further work on that, and I'm pleased we'll return to discuss that with the board next week and in turn with the Assurance Board in the weeks to come. There's more to follow on that as those discussions continue, and this is really important because this is our path and roadmap, we hope, from level 4 to level 3, so we can sustain our improvements over time. Turning to our 3 priority areas, I think it's fair to say we can evidence good progress in 2 out of 3 areas, and we're really working hard to replicate across the system to replicate the progress in unscheduled care, recognising that too many of our emergency patients are still experiencing unacceptably long waits. And I think it's fair to say there's some small signs of improvements if we look at the sub-metrics that we can point to and indeed will now build on. And I know Geraldine, as Chief Officer for Acute, with our IJB Chief Officers, will turn our attention to that later on the agenda. In relation to planned care, notwithstanding the significant impact of the central decontamination unit shutdown, we have significantly reduced 52-week waits. So really focused on our longest wait patients was a really positive news story. And I can confirm, consistent with the paper, that the revised trajectories were submitted to the Scottish Government and accepted at the end of January time. I can also confirm, again, there's a reference in the paper to the extension of funding into Q1. We have since received a letter from the Scottish Government to support the extension of that funding so we can continue with our independent sector activity into Q1 of the new financial year. So that impact can continue to be felt, which again is much welcomed. It would be remiss of me not to reference the central decontamination unit reopening at the end of January as planned. And again, I just want to reiterate my thanks to staff and to partners for their support and efforts over the last 4 months. It's been a sustained period of disruption for everybody, not least our patients. And I want to recognise the support we've received from other health boards in the form of mutual aid and the hard work of our staff over that period of time. Last but by no means least, value and sustainability. Pleased to report, and I know our Director of Finance will expand on this later on in the agenda, but pleased to report we are on track to achieve our maximum deficit position and savings plan for the year, which again will signal a really important step forward for the organisation. And with that, we are doing more integrated financial planning with our system partners as we look to 26-27, which again is also welcome. And finally, I think it's always important that we celebrate our successes, because amidst our challenges, there are successes and progress that we should recognise. And as detailed in my paper, I'd just like to pull out 2 of those. So firstly, I'd like to congratulate the 4 colleagues from NHS Grampian who are finalists in the Royal College of Nursing Scotland Nurse of the Year Awards. And of course to Zozia for her OBE in the New Year's Honours in recognition of her outstanding contribution to medical genetics. The board chair and I have written to all of these colleagues to extend our congratulations on behalf of the board, which is really important and well received by those colleagues. And just before I pause for any questions, if I could just highlight and indeed correct a really small point of accuracy in my paper, please, for the minutes. So page 1 of my report and 24 of the pack, under the Assurance Board item, second paragraph should read, "We are taking positive steps to improve our organisational culture, not are we?" And please, if that could be corrected for accuracy, I'd be really grateful. Thank you. So Chair, I'll pause there. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. That was very helpful and full report. Thank you. Dennis, please, do you want to come in?
And it was just on that very last point that you raised there, Laura, and good morning. I'm absolutely delighted to hear that the Assurance Board have moved on to look at the culture, governance and leadership. And I'm just wondering if you're able to give us an indication of what current steps have been taken and are likely to be put in progress to look at those 3 elements of terms of culture, governance and leadership, because as you just indicated, steps have been taken. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Dennis, for the question. So yeah, I think various dimensions to this, and if I may give some examples in each of those areas that may be most helpful to the board. So firstly, in terms of culture, as you know, we now have stood up a culture programme, and that programme has 3 strands to it. Leadership, equality and staff health and wellbeing. And we have agreed that a quarterly update on the culture working programme will come onwards through to the Assurance Board. In terms of governance, again, I would say there's 2 or 3 lenses to this that the Assurance Board are interested in. Firstly, changes to operational governance and strengthened decision making in the organisation, as I've signalled in my own board paper, and I updated the Assurance Board on those developments just last week. Secondly, corporate governance, and our board chair has been asked to bring an update on corporate governance through to the Assurance Board in the next couple of months. And then I think the final strand, but by no means least, is clinical governance, and I know we'll turn our attention to that at next week's Assurance Board. And then I think in the leadership space, of course, that links back to our culture programme, because that is one of the 3 strands, but real interest in that leadership stability. So as an example, the recruitment around substantive executive directors, Dennis is probably the most timely example. So hopefully that's helpful, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Dennis nodding. Thank you. Move to Sandy, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for your report, Laura. I think there's a lot of really positive things there. You've obviously hit the ground running, and there's a lot of things that are underway that are really welcome. I mean, I too, like Dennis, very much support the kind of wider focus. I think this is long overdue, so that's really positive. And I welcome the reference to engaging with leaders and staff across the organisation to share developments and get that all important ownership. I think at PAFIC, just we've very much stressed the need for there to be active governance across leadership and at every level of the organisation, and I think that sometimes historically staff have felt rather remote to some of the processes and governance arrangements. I have to say that in my time in NHS Grampian, and I've visited and spoken to staff with some of the colleagues that are joining us today, I think a lot of staff have said that they have made suggestions and they're up for change, and they can point out to things that perhaps could be easier in terms of improving processes for the public and so forth. And I think they get very frustrated that things haven't changed despite being consulted on many occasions. So I think there is a very strong appetite amongst staff that we do that all-important shift from visioning, consulting and planning to actually delivering change and at pace. So I think the foundations are there. I think staff are really up for it, and they're looking for our leadership to deliver it.
Thank you very much, Sandy. Laura, do you want to respond? Sorry.
Yeah, just very briefly, if I may. So thanks, Sandy. I couldn't agree more. I think a few things really, and it's very much work in progress. I think there are a number of things that we are doing to really strengthen engagement and that listening piece across the organisation. I think we have some fabulous staff networks. I've been to a number of them myself, actually as recently as yesterday, but in the last couple of weeks. And those colleagues really have some fantastic ideas for moving the organisation forward and making improvements. So I actually think there's a huge opportunity with the staff networks we have, as well, of course, as our clinical advisory groups, to really lean into that. We, as you know, have started some work to engage as we develop our 26-27 priorities. Again, that's a real engagement opportunity that as an exec team we are owning, and we've had an absolutely fantastic response. The first all-staff session last Friday, there was over 550 staff on the call, so it was a brilliant engagement session. People had some fantastic ideas, so we're fine-tuning those priorities in response to that feedback, and that's the way engagement should be. Of course, we're doing external engagement as well with our partners and community groups, so please know that. But I think you're right, the appetite is there. I think we've got to now be consistent and lead from the front. Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you very much, Laura. I see Sandy nodding as well. That's great. Thank you. Hussein, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Laura, and thank you for the paper. And can I just start by echoing your thanks to all of our staff and those congratulations that you put on the record there as well. I think my points around operational governance have been covered. I'm going to put all my questions together because they probably tie into each other. And there's one slightly outline question at the end I'll come back to with the chair's indulgence. Yeah, my points on operational government I think have been made. I think I'm pleased to hear that there'll be a lot of qualitative feedback going back to the Assurance Board around some of the recommendations on governance. I'd be interested to know if the Assurance Board have asked for, and indeed if there's any quantitative way of measuring that in terms of being able to build a trajectory so we can see that improvement over time. With respect to the de-escalation criteria, that is good that we now know what we need to do to look towards de-escalating down the framework. I'd be interested to know if there's been any comment from the Assurance Board in terms of the pace of that change, particularly in the context of the reducing support funding over the next few years, but also in the context of the priority that we have against prevention and how we balance the preventative spend against the transformational spend that we need to do. And I see Alex is wanting to come in on that, the transformative spend that we need to do to comply with the recommendations and what we're being held to by the board versus prevention in the community, and the system is now putting an increasing priority on that. I'll stop there, and I do have just one separate question at the end.
Yeah, thank you. I'll come to Laura, but then I noticed Alex put his hand up as well. So Laura first, so maybe Alex can come in. Laura.
Okay, thank you. So I think in terms of governance and the focus of the Assurance Board on both operational governance and board level governance, I think it's early days. We've just had one agenda item today, Hussein, but I think it's really around where we start, what might the gaps and opportunities to be, and actually the Assurance Board is there to say how might they support us if indeed we feel that would be helpful. So I see that as nothing other than welcome. So early days, and we're just about, we're just starting to get into that space. And of course, we know from a governance perspective, that is one of the reasons we're escalated. And in the external diagnostic review report that was published in October of last year, it did signal opportunities in terms of operational governance effectiveness. So this is us acting on those very clear recommendations. I think in terms of de-escalation criteria, again, we are in the early stages of discussion around what those criteria may be and look like. What's really important is that whatever the criteria is realistic and deliverable and actually leads to sustainable improvements and change. So I realistically think we're looking at a 12 to 18 month journey based on discussions today. But of course, ultimately, that will be up to the Scottish Government. So early days, but work in progress. So I'll pause there, Chair, and I'm sure Alex will wish to come in, including on the prevention question with Shantini. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and good morning. Yeah, I think Hussein, you framed that question really well around about the the support. So we are getting additional support over the next 3 years to whilst we kind of transition into that new model. And I think one of the things that we need to be mindful of in relation to that is how prevention will help to support that transition as well. So I think your question's well framed there. As Laura says, it's a little bit too early to kind of frame the escalation or de-escalation criteria at the moment, but certainly it's something in our minds that prevention needs to play an important part in relation to our financial recovery, and that's something that the board has held quite strong for the last 4 years and before that, and I'm sure will continue to do so. But maybe Shantini would want to see a little bit more in relation to that.
Yes, thanks very much. And Shantini, would you like to come in?
Yeah, no, great. So thank you for the question. And so just building on what Alex has been saying, so it's been really helpful to work collaboratively with the finance team, etc., and just trying to think through how we approach this. So preventative spend and increasing our trajectory in preventative spend is very much a key thing in the population health framework and the service renewal framework. There is work, whole system work going on nationally, and a few boards are piloting the methods at the moment. So we're keeping a watchful eye and looking to see. I know that there will be a number of additional boards that can take part in the early adopters type exercise. So we're looking to we're keeping an eye out for those opportunities, and if we are in the right space then to be able to step into that given our current context, then that's very much what we would be looking to do. I also think that this will very much feature in the subnational type approaches that are going forward, and so there will be opportunities there as well as we respond to the subnational planning and so on, to also step into that space.
Thank you very much, Shantini. Thank you. And I'll come back to Hussein because he said there was a final point.
I do. This is an outlier question, but you may be aware of very recent reports indicating that a major national supplier has indicated that there is a national shortage of medical grade cement, which is used in joint replacement operations. And I just wanted to give you the opportunity to maybe just clarify whether it's likely that that is also likely to impact on NHS boards in Scotland, given the implications that would have on our trajectories for weights, etc.
It's an outlier question, isn't it, Hussein? And Hugh's put his hand up, so I will turn directly to Hugh rather than Laura. Hugh.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Hussein. That's a very timely question. I was discussing this with the clinical lead for orthopaedics yesterday. So there's a couple of dimensions to this. So the first thing to say, which is reassuring, is that this is not a cement supplier that we use in NHS Grampian. So that's the first thing to say. As you have rightly alluded to, it is used widely within NHS England trusts, and there are 2 health boards in Scotland that use this as their preferred supplier. So although we don't use it directly because of the likely increased demand on other suppliers, including those that we do use, there is a potential for difficulty in the supply chain coming from that. Because of that, and because of the intelligence within the orthopaedic community that this was coming, our team are working on ensuring good stocks are available from the supplier that we do use to try and mitigate the anticipated 2-month gap in supply from the supplier that you're referring to. So I hope that's of some reassurance, and we will obviously continue to work with other partner boards in Scotland as well, and if there is an impact from patients that we might be sending to other boards that use that supplier, we will track that very closely and take all actions to mitigate any delays for our patients. Thanks.
Thank you. That responding in partnership is really important, isn't it? Hussein, do you want to come back?
No, just to say thank you. I think that reassurance will be very, very helpful for folk. It was disappointing that some of the coverage around that did not explicitly provide that reassurance for people in Scotland, but I appreciate Hugh taking the opportunity to do that now. And thank you for your indulgence, Chair, as well.
Thank you, Hussein. Thank you. All right, we'll turn now to John, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick questions. And thanks for the report, Laura. So just on the operational governance, which is really helpful to see, and we'll get more information. Just linking it up with our working committees, the infrastructure that sits underneath the committees is really important, because committees can't cover everything, and do have limited time through their meetings through the year. Will there be, in the further information coming back, information that helps us link the operational governance and how it feeds into the committees, so that we've got our complete governance picture? That's one bit. And then I was struck how far it might also extend across into the partnership working, because the governance is quite a complex governance landscape that we work in, and is it something that we can also look to strengthen with our other hats on in terms of IJBs? Thank you.
Thank you, John. I think they're very useful questions as well. Laura, please, do you want to come in?
Thanks, John. Thanks for the questions. So in terms of the immediate focus, it is on NHS Grampian, but I'll come back to that because there may well be opportunities moving forward. So in terms of the immediate changes that we're looking at and have agreed from April, this will be around standing up the executive team, having a real focus on executive team development, which has just been scoped at the moment, and also looking at our current operational governance landscape, identifying what formally reports through to the executive team, but also identifying any gaps. So that piece of work is really well advanced, and those first tranche of changes will come into effect from April, whilst we look at what a more inclusive decision-making model in the organisation may look like moving forward. So I think it may be helpful, Board Chair, if I do a session for non-executives in the weeks to come, and certainly be before April, around where we've got to, what those changes mean, and the outputs of that operational governance work, which our Board Secretary is supporting with. So that may be a helpful action, Board Chair, if you're in agreement with that. So that's where we are at the moment, because it is really important that I can feed back to you that complete picture in terms of the operational governance work and how it links through to the board assurance arm in the organisation. There may be opportunities to look at IJB links from there, but at the moment, I'm quite frank, I think we have enough to do internally to focus on it at the moment, and that's where my attention is. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And yeah, I think there's an awful lot to say that can't be said in the brief response to John here. So Alison, please, could you record that as an action? That'd be very helpful, an action for a session with Laura on operational governance for members of the board. Thank you. Okay, John, do you want to come back, or are you satisfied?
No, thank you. Just clarifies expectations around that, which is helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. I can't see any other indications. So I just say thank you to Laura for her report and for the answers given, and also to everyone, or colleagues who came in as well to help with those answers. Thank you. And then can we move then, having noted that Chief Executive's report, can we turn to item 6 on the agenda, which is the forum reports. The first one is the Area Clinical Forum report. As noted at the beginning, Mark Burrell's given his apologies today. So we have Robert Lockhart here with us today to present the ACF report. Can I turn to Robert, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good morning, colleagues. I'll give a very brief overview of the area clinical report that you have from our January meeting. Overall, the forum continues to function well as an advisory group, providing constructive clinical input to the board and executive team, and I hope that this update offers some assurance around that. We received at our January meeting an update on the unscheduled care improvement plan with details of the 17 work streams now underway. There was strong support for the importance of the GP lead role in enabling genuine cross-system approach, particularly around reducing delays, length of stay and avoidable admissions. The forum did recognise the complexity of the system, but felt that collaboration and a strong preventative focus should start to deliver improvement, which we're thankfully seeing. The forum also discussed the Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership consultation proposals on budget savings for the coming year. There was widespread concern around the potential impact of these on vulnerable patient groups and on wider system performance. I have raised these concerns with our Chief Executive team, and I'm currently liaising with the forum members around an offer to meet with Fiona in her Chief Officer role. The financial update was encouraging, with improvement noted and progress towards remaining within the agreed overspend while continuing to balance stability and clinical governance. We also noted advisory updates, ongoing work on zero tolerance to violence and aggression, closer links with public health around prevention, and continued collaboration with ACF and GAPF on the priorities for the 26-27 delivery plan. In summary, the forum remains engaged, clinically focused and constructive, and I'm happy to answer any query colleagues may have.
Yeah, thank you for that report, Robert, but also thank you for all the work that you referred to there, and there's ongoing on behind the scenes as well. I appreciate that. It's really important for our organisation as a whole, so thank you. Dennis, please.
And good morning, Robert. In terms of the unscheduled care presentation that you had to ACF, is there, was there a question raised in terms of coming back to ACF with progress at some point, say, whether it be in 6 months or wherever? I'm just wondering, was it just left as is? We're starting to note some improvements and realizing the complexities there. And I'm just wondering, was there or is there an intent for it to come back to ACF with an update? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks for your question, Dennis. I don't think it was formally recorded as an intent to bring back, but there is the ongoing weekly meetings that the Area Clinical Forum have with our Chief Executive team and representatives, and I think that's a useful opportunity to be reviewing how the progress that the plan is making, and certainly Mark as chair and myself as vice chair very interested in this, and always happy to have people back to the clinical forum to hear about what progress we're making.
Yeah, thank you. I think those weekly meetings with the Chief Executive and others are really important for everyone, aren't they? So thank you very much for that. Being able to fulfil that advisory role through those meetings is key. Thank you. Fiona, do you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And Robert, thank you for the ongoing conversation we'll be having around about ours. I do just want to be really clear. The comments were around about our public consultation that we had gone out for, and the whole point of doing the public consultation was to understand that wider impact, and the feedback we get from that is used to for our impact assessments. So, and as it is an IJB matter, but some of the feedback that we've got does influence what we take forward to the IJB, which we haven't agreed yet. These are all just things that we have put forward as potential savings as part of our public consultation. So just to give reassurance to the board and to the wider system, these are not confirmed savings, and the whole purpose of doing that is to get that consultation to understand that, and as I say, to influence our impact assessments. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. That's really important clarification. Thank you. Okay. I can't see any other questions or comments for Robert. So we're asked whether we are assured of the work that ACF is doing and its role within our system. Are we assured by the work of ACF here? Yeah, thank you very much. See the nods there as well. So appreciate your coming in today, Robert, to talk to us there. Thank you very much. Okay, with that then we'll move to 6.2, the Grampian Area Partnership Forum report, and that is Stephen, please, going to present to us.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. You've got the report in your pack, which provides a summary of the items discussed at the meetings of Grampian Area Partnership Forum in November and December last year. Given that we've got our next open board meeting of NHS Grampian Board next month, I'll provide an update then for the January and February matters that were discussed. So, yeah, as is so often the case, when Mark and Robert you'll work away and produce their report, and the GAPF report is is prepared entirely separately. You'll see that there are some commonality of the issues discussed and and things flagged up. So I don't really have anything in particular to highlight, but happy to take any questions that colleagues may have.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you. Any questions from colleagues, please? Colette, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report, Stephen. My question relates to the subnational arrangements, and I appreciate the report is a little out of date now, but you do raise the concern in there about engagement with staff side on the national, on the subnational work. Has that happened yet? I note the report says that you hope that appropriate consultation will take place. It's just to clarify whether that's happening or not. Thank you.
Yeah, that kind of relates to the question that I did about comments we made about the actions that Laura gave earlier about the action tracker. But Stephen, is there anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Colette. And as Alison, as linked to the the item in the action tracker, I would agree with Laura's earlier comments on this. National staff side have been engaged in discussions. There have been meetings, and at this stage there are a number of strands that are being discussed. And I think the phrase that's probably quite relevant is that nothing will be agreed until everything is agreed. So those discussions are ongoing, but at least the correct parties are engaging, and it'll be for national staff side to agree with their Scottish Government and NHS Scotland employer partners, as we do in in terms of the employee relations piece overall. So it's a work in progress, I suppose, would be the summarised version. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Laura, do you want to come in again on that as well, please?
Yeah, just building very briefly more than anything. So Stephen's absolutely right. Those discussions nationally are ongoing. They're being led by the Director General for Health and Social Care. And there's probably two main areas of focus, really, just for transparency with the board. There's the issue around how many seats will staff side and employee directors have in the various meetings linked to the subnational governance arrangements. So that's one facet of the conversation. The other facet, but of course there are more than this, but I'm just pulling out the two perhaps main items at the moment. The other facet is around the director leads, so the teams that are being put in to the subnational arrangements. So again, those discussions are ongoing as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Laura, and for Stephen as well. I can't see any other comments, questions? No? Well, thank you, Stephen, for your report as well. We're asked to note this report. Can we agree that we've noted it? Thank you. Thank you very much for that one then. And then moving on to the 6.3, the IJB report. Fiona, please. Fiona's going to present this.
Again, morning everyone. I'm so happy to share the 3 IJB approved minutes, excuse me, from our meetings at the end of 2025. Seems a long time ago now. There is definite common themes across all our IJBs, looking at our strategic directions and where we're going and our finances. So that's a consistent theme. I would like just to highlight in December, Aberdeenshire strategic plan was approved, and they also discussed their draft medium-term financial strategy. Also, City and Shire have had their Chief Social Work Officer annual reports presented, which include both impact on children and adult services. And we would just like to flag Murray's IGB has approved the strategic direction set out by their interim chief social work officer on the significant and sustained pressures experienced by children's services. So we continue, and that's slightly different because City and Aberdeenshire don't have children's services, so it's definitely an additional pressure that Murray are finding at the minute. I'm not going to steal Alex's thunder for a paper later on in the agenda about our finances, but I'm happy to take any questions, and Judith and Lee are also here. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining, Judith and Lee as well. Any questions for Fiona or for Judith or Lee? Thank you, Dennis.
Morning, Fiona. I know you don't want to steal Alex's thunder, but I'm just at this stage. Can you give us an indication of how well the discussions are going in terms with the 3 CFOs and our Director of Finance and his team in terms of looking at our finances, and whether or not discussions are also being held with our council partners because they are part of that wider stakeholder group? Thank you.
Thank you. Fiona, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm happy to come back. So thank you for your question, Dennis. So absolutely, we had a session last week. So we had our second session with our Chief Exec local authority, our local authorities of the start again. Apologies, Dennis. The Chief Execs of the local authorities, Laura and the team, the CFOs from the IJBs and the Section 95 officers from the local authority, along with Laura, Phil and Alex were there as well. So again, this was, so the first one was, where are we, what are we doing, how are we working together? The second one was absolutely about our budget setting. Where are we looking at our savings for next year and considering that wider impact? So it's a really good session on the last Friday it was, Dennis, and we're getting back together again on the 10th of March with the Assurance Board to let them know where we've got to with our planning. So absolutely join together and making sure and being very, very thoughtful of that impact and where we are and what we're doing. But we're deep in it, still budget setting. As you know, our IGBs are all meeting in March to finalise our budgets for 25-26. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona, and Dennis is nodding there as well. Any other comments? Just one from me, Fiona. I noticed in the Aberdeenshire papers, when it's listing through what's been discussed, one of the things discussed was the Grampian Health and Care Whole System Plan. Is that referring to some of the items under the unscheduled care plan, the programme that we have as well, the whole system plan? And are those issues being looked at across all IJBs, even though it was obviously picked out because it's in the timetable for Aberdeenshire in this particular set of papers? Thank you.
I don't know if Lee wants to come in to start.
Thank you,
Oh, here we
Lee.
go. Thanks.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was in relation to our joint up working around unscheduled care and a number of other issues that we are collectively collaborating on that Fiona has just outlined there.
Yeah, brilliant. I just thought it was important to clarify that that's what that was referring to. So thank you very much, Lee, for that clarification. Okay, I can't see any other questions or comments there. So can we agree to note the IJB reports, please? Thank you. And then we move on to 6.4, the Financial Recovery Board papers. Richie, do you want to say anything about these, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Morning, everybody. Just a few brief comments. The papers are there. And there's some, I guess, reinforcement of some of our comments just later on the agenda on the finance element. And also we've touched on that whole system thing, Dennis, you raised just a second ago as well. So just briefly then, the board continues to focus on the monthly financial updates, and we do get into some detail in terms of issues identified within those, and sometimes those do lead to deep dives into particular areas, and that's something that the board continues to focus on as well. In terms of deep dives, over the December and January meetings, we did look at the use of reserves and also tests of change. And that was a combination of ensuring good awareness of how reserves across NHS Grampian were used, understanding them fully, and also it was around the governance of tests of change to make sure that those were being managed effectively. On reserves, we were assured in terms of the approach to the management of reserves and use of reserves, and also we did agree collectively that there was a little bit of work to do in terms of governance of tests of change, just to make sure that those are being managed effectively and the outcomes and outputs from those can be positive. In terms of value and sustainability across both those most recent meetings in December and January, we're really pleased to see continued progress in that area, and I know we'll come on to that again later on in the agenda. And also, understandably, as we move towards the end of this financial year, the thinking about next year starts to flourish more clearly as well. So again, pleased to see that developing. Our meeting on the 8th of January particularly focused on the 3 IGBs, just to continue that recent conversation from the last item. And we really appreciated the 3 chief officers attending to share updates and raise awareness in terms of the financial position of each IGB. The meeting allowed us to get into quite a bit of detail of some of the challenges and the work underway across the IGBs, and certainly we were grateful for the significant time and discussion we enjoyed at the meeting. And we really recognised both the challenges within the IGB settings, but also the work underway and the commitment to I guess meet those challenges, both in terms of services, but also particularly finances in our case. And we did also recognise that whole system approach, that very point Dennis just made a minute ago. It's not just about each of the IGBs themselves looking within their own sphere. It was around across the 3 IGBs, and really importantly across local authority and NHSG more widely. So I think Fiona's covered well that continued work that will be really important for us. And again, in terms of the financial position, that there clearly are ongoing challenges around the IGBs, and I know there's again a separate report on that later, so I won't say any more in terms of that. And finally, just in terms of that kind of whole system, Luke, Fiona has joined the Financial Recovery Board as a member. So again, we will make sure from our perspective we continue to make sure that full scan across the whole range of activity. Thanks, Al.
Yeah, that's welcome to hear that Fiona's involved in the Financial Recovery Board now. Thank you. That helps drive forward the actions we need as well, doesn't it? So thank you. Okay, any questions or comments for Richie or for Alex or Phil? Joyce, please.
Thanks, Alison. Thanks, Richie. It's clear from your report that you see the importance of the full integration of all partners in the whole system. Do you think that is being seen across all areas, not just in finance, so that everybody understands and appreciates the value of working together from the clinicians right through to the preventative side in the communities?
I think that's a broader question, isn't it? Maybe Rick, do you want to start, and then maybe Laura can comment as well on that one? Thank you. Jay? Yeah, no, I think that's certainly happy to comment initially. It's one that, from a Financial Recovery Board perspective, that I've been acutely aware of. It's while the title is about financial recovery, actually that can't be seen in isolation of how we deliver services in that collective sense. So when we get reports coming through in terms of value and sustainability or in-year management of in-year budget pressures, it is connected to our organisational priorities as well. So I guess that and the impact assessment work that I know that the teams do that look to see, well, how does this impact on other parts of the business and the service? That's something that we do consider very carefully. But perhaps beyond that, it might be helpful if any kind of executive colleagues want to, I guess, want to further comment on that. But it is something that I wouldn't say that we absolutely major on it, Joyce, but it absolutely is within our line of sight in terms of wanting to make sure we don't look at the money just in isolation. Yeah, thank you. Would someone like to come in and add to that? Phil, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Maybe just to add that, as we develop these opportunities and efficiencies, that they come from across the entirety of the organisation, and so we fully engage our clinical and operational and corporate colleagues in the development of these schemes, and those go through the relevant governance routes before they get to Finance Recovery Board. So I think there's very good engagement that way. I'd also say that we are working very well with our IJB partners and councils in terms of looking at wider system opportunities, and we've just started that piece of work, and we look forward to continuing that through March and into next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you for coming on that one. Joyce, is that?
That's very useful, because I think it's vital that this is the whole system approach is understood and accepted by everyone within the system. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Joyce. Laura, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just building on that and perhaps taking it a step further, really. I think there's something around our understanding in terms of our local system and where are there Grampian-wide opportunities to work together more effectively through the work Phil has described. But I think we're very clear, or becoming clearer, around what then sits in the subnational work and the East of Scotland work. So I think we've now got to think about Pan-Grampian and the East and the subnational work. And I think that's becoming more crystallised as we get into into the subnational work, but also develop the work of the North East Transformation Group, which, as Phil has described, is just about to be stood back up again in a refreshed guise. So I think that's how we need to think about our redesign and transformation work moving forward. So more to follow on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. Any other questions or comments? Something from me that's maybe for Phil rather than for Richie. I mean, in the papers, it's mentioned the Financial Recovery Board. One thing I looked at was medical agency spend and the risk around medical agency spend. Can you just briefly talk to us about the process when the Financial Recovery Board notices a heightened risk? What is the process around that, Phil? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So I suppose a few things to say. One, the risk around medical agency is clearly because this is around recruitment and maintaining our substantive workforce, and that applies to all of our agency use. What we have done in the last few months is really strengthen the link between our operational and clinical teams and finance teams. So we monitor almost on a weekly or monthly basis. So when there is some variance to plan, we can go in quite quickly, have early discussions. I will say that the proposals around medical agency were presented to the portfolio medical directors last week for full input. So I think there was both good engagement, but then very good oversight through our finance and the KPIs that we use through our operational performance.
Brilliant. Thank you for that assurance, Phil, about the process. Appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions or comments about the Financial Recovery Board papers? No, well, thank you, Richie, for presenting to us on that one and for answering the questions there as well. Thank you. Appreciate that. Oh, can we note the Financial Recovery Board papers, please? Thank you. Then we move on then to item 7, which is a subnational planning, which has been referred to just a moment ago. But Laura, do you want to go into more detail about this, please? Thank you. Item 7.
Thanks, Chair. I'll take the paper as read. It's here for noting, but I think there's a few important items to draw the board's attention to, not least recognising that this work is moving at significant pace. And of course, board chair may want to add to my comments, recognising the latest subnational planning and delivery committee for the East took place just yesterday afternoon. So I'll make a few remarks and then perhaps hand over to our board chair. So firstly, just as a recap, really, to bring us all back up to speed, just going back to November of last year, that was when this subnational planning director's letter and ministerial direction was released, and that confirmed the move to 2 subnational planning arrangements, i.e. the creation of a East unit and a West unit, and as detailed in the paper, NHS Grampian as part of that East arrangements. And a number of drivers around this change, but I think the 2 principal drivers that I would draw the board's attention to are the move to more financial and clinical sustainability through this arrangement, but secondly, leaning more into more effective collaborative working. And I know that's been a discussions at the board today in recent months. Moving on, there will be population level planning on 5 priority areas. And just to recap what those areas are, I'm more than happy to expand on this in questions if this is helpful. The first is orthopaedic waiting times. The second is emergency healthcare. The third area is the digital front door, and that starts with the mycare.scot, which will fundamentally change how people access their health and social care information. The fourth area is business systems, and the fifth area is consolidated financial planning. And what I want to emphasise to the board at this moment is there are NHS Grampian colleagues in all of these spaces, so we have a voice. We are very much engaged and very much leaning into this from an exec leadership perspective. Each of these areas have clear commissions in place, and with that, as was presented at the committee yesterday, clear set of ambitions and priority actions as we look to the next 3 years. And I do want to mention, because I know it's been an area of interest for this board, but also across boards in the East, the importance of the Rural and Island Commission as well, which is in place and again remains under discussion in the committee. The third area I want to highlight is that board chairs and chief executives just last week received a letter from the Chief Operating Officer and Deputy Chief Exec for NHS Scotland, which set out very clearly the drafting deadlines for the plans for the priority areas that I've just described. And in headline terms, the first submission as a draft to the Chief Operating Officer for NHS Scotland is on the 27th of February. By the end of March, there needs to be approved plans submitted that have been approved through the Subnational Planning and Delivery Committee for the East onwards to Scottish Government. And beyond that, there are timelines and clear deadlines for ministerial approval, which take us into the early summertime. I'm sure our board chair will return to this because this was a feature of yesterday's committee meeting, but by mid-March, boards need to review the draft plans ahead of that end of March deadline for the Subnational Planning and Delivery Committee, so we can talk through, I'm sure, the logistics of what that looks like from an NHS Grampian perspective. I think I've touched on the national discussions around staff side. That was going to be one of my updates, but I think we've covered that in a couple of agenda items. So I move on just to confirm to the board that in terms of the transition plans, there are very clear governance arrangements in place, and that is the current North of Scotland Chief Executives overseeing these plans with input from medical directors and executive nurse directors. It's really important that we minimise any clinical risk in particular, and we don't see any unintended consequences as we move through this transitional period. So that interim governance arrangement has been agreed and is now in place. As I touched on earlier, the rhythm of weekly comms is in place. That comes out to all boards in the East, and that is shared across the organisation. And subnational is a standing agenda item in a number of meetings, including Chief Executive Team, Area Clinical Forum, Area Partnership Forum, and all of our wider staff briefings and wider senior leadership team meetings as well. We have had 3 subnational planning and delivery committee meetings in the East to date, and the last 2 updates, as I said, the most recent was yesterday afternoon, was an update on those work streams, setting out the ambition and also the key priorities looking to the next 3 years. And then just finally, there is a plan for an East Programme Management Office to be stood up to coordinate all of this body of work, and that will happen from next week, which I personally very much welcome. So I think I will pause there and perhaps ask our board chair if she has anything to add, but more than happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Laura. Just 4 very brief points for me, because that was a very full report back. So just 4 brief points. First of all, the diversity of the boards right across the East is recognised and being built on in the work that's going forward. So I think it's an important assurance to give everyone, first of all. Secondly, our execs are involved in a wide sense in the work being done in the East as well. So there's huge opportunities for people to contribute actively and participate in the development of the East, because we're obviously in that development stage at the moment. So that's an important point. The comms that Laura referred to is something that we've been very supportive in pushing for and making sure that everyone is kept up to date with what's happening as well. It's really important. There's no surprises in this. There's a programme of travel that everyone's aware of. So that is happening as well. And the 4th point, the final point that's really important for us as a board is we have a chance to look at the plans before they're submitted to the Scottish Government and give our views and our feedback for that. On the timescale that was looked at yesterday, it should be possible to bring that paper to our March the 19th board meeting, our next board meeting, and hear views and comments from colleagues at that point to feedback into the East, and therefore to help with the submission of the plan as it will be submitted at the end of March to the Scottish Government. So we will return to this hopefully at the March board meeting if the timetable works to plan, and I hope it does. Thank you. I've got Hussein and Derek, please. Hussein.
Thank you very much, Chair. The point around engagement has already been made, so I won't reiterate it, although I would just add to the point that was made when we discussed staff engagement to say, obviously, we'd hope that would include our communities as well. Chair, you've spoken about diversity, which covers the point I was going to raise, that we have a significantly larger rural area compared to some of the other boards, and how would that be managed? But you've alluded to that in your comments. I just wanted to ask whether or not the subnational planning have got to the point of having a risk register, and what are the arrangements in terms of financial risk sharing, and how does that interact with our own board in terms of our escalation and our financial journey to find balance? And also, I would just add that on in terms of the level of work that we're doing, and that has come across in the meeting already so far today. Just to reiterate the point I think I may have made at the last meeting around the potential risk of overstretch by our executives who are doing a tremendous amount of work. But this paper seems to also indicate a phenomenal amount of commitment to the subnational work as well. So just to ask how we're handling that as well. to avoid any unintended consequences. Sorry, I hope that makes sense.
No, it does make sense, Suzanne. Thank you. And to emphasise the point I made about diversity, there is a strand in the east on the rural and island, and there's lots of work being done on that, and that's being picked up through that. So I think that maybe covers that one. Directors of Finance are meeting regularly, and we had a detailed report from Directors of Finance at the meeting yesterday. But I see Alex has commented on that, so I'll bring Alex in on the finance side.
Yeah, thanks, Hussein. At the moment, there's no risk share between the boards in the east, or no formal risk share that's been created, because we're still accountable. So Laura's still the accountable officer for NHS Grampian. So we're all still responsible for our own budgets, our own finances. But what there is a consensus around about is that we need to try and work together to try and get everybody back into balance. So there'll be some boards within that area who are balanced. There'll be some who are like ourselves who are out of balance, and this will allow us to work collaboratively to try and resolve try and improve our financial situation as well. So that's where we are at the moment. In terms of our financial plan, we need to add a bit into our financial plan around about our support to East, and we will be doing that, and we will run that past the board at the relevant point so that you've got sight of that, so you can see what's coming through in relation to that. For the year one, that's not going to be a lot, but once the planning starts to step up, we might see a little bit more coming through in that space. In terms of how the execs handle having to do this, certainly we have, certainly from my own perspective, and I know my colleagues, we are fully engaged in relation to these conversations. We have to remember that we did have a North region as well, which we are also involved in as well. So some of the work that we had previously done in the North is now shifting to the East. So there is a little bit of a little bit of saving in time as a result of that. But continue to work in that space to get the best outcomes for the people of Grampian.
Thanks, Alex. It's very helpful. But I'll turn to Laura as well, please. Laura.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Just building on that and responding specifically as well to the public engagement point, because this is really important. So Healthcare Improvement Scotland has taken a lead role on that in this space, and they are members of the Subnational Planning and Delivery Committee, but also have representatives on each of the work streams that I've set out as well, and making sure there's absolute consistency, recognising there is planning with people guidance that his lead on, and properly so, but it enables consistency across the East and the West as and when we get into that public engagement space. So that's something that is well and truly on the radar, and I think his are very much locked into those conversations, along with communications and engagement leads more broadly. In terms of risk register, so in terms of that Subnational Planning Delivery Committee, there is not a risk register as yet as things get stood up. But in terms of the transitional plan that I've discussed and alluded to, yes, risk is an absolute focus in that plan for obvious reasons, not least the clinical risk that I touched on earlier. Thanks, Hussein.
Thank you. Hussein, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Derek, please.
Thank you. Laura will be aware of this from a previous job, but there's very strong links between the Northern Isles and Grampian, and a wee bit of concern that, talking about the East, that we might lose that link between Grampian and the islands, and I think that link's beneficial for both, and it goes just beyond health. It goes into transport and other relationships between Grampian area and the Northern Isles, and I would hate to see us lose that by transferring some of the stuff that we do for the Northern Isles to other parts of the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you. There's something close to my heart, as you all know. So no, those strong relationships will remain. So please be assured of that. And of course, Shetland and Orkney are still in the East of Scotland arrangements. We equally have close links, of course, with NHS Highland. And though NHS Highland are in the West, I think we need to not think of it about there being a wall between the East and the West. So we're just setting up an exec to exec with NHS Highland to continue those and build those relationships as well. So hopefully that's helpful, Derek. But no, that support for the Northern Isles and including Shetland and Orkney will only go from strength to strength. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Is that helpful?
I think time will tell, won't it?
You see the intention. The intention is there because we know the importance of the relationships, and certainly from I just comment from the board chair's point of view. I mean, our links as chairs are really strong and continuing to be strong with the chairs from the former North group as well. So that is dialogue is continuing as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Richie, please.
Yeah, thanks. And just to say, I'm very supportive of the subnational planning approach. I think that's a really good intent. I've got a kind of practical question, and there's maybe one more about timing more than anything. And it's we're, as a board, kind of focused on our journey in terms of de-escalation, hopefully, over time. And we're also well through our planning for next year in terms of priorities and also budgets. Just a question, to make sure that the subnational work doesn't in some way compromise our own intent, our own journey over the coming year in particular. So how can we ensure, how can we be assured that that cohesion between what we need to do as a NHS Grampian board in terms of our challenges that sits alongside very comfortably the work of the subnational planning arrangements?
Thank you. Laura, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I think there's complete alignment. If you look at the priority areas between unscheduled care, planned care, and value and sustainability, they're right at the heart of the subnational work. So I actually only think it gives us even more levers to accelerate and build on the improvements that we've touched on already in this meeting. And of course, digital is, we know we have more work to do in that space. So I think there's complete alignment. And as I say, I think it only gives us more opportunities to improve. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Colette, please.
Yeah, thanks for the paper, Laura. It's really interesting, and I think there's much to be welcomed in it. My question relates to it's similar to the question that Derek asked about the islands, but it relates to the patient experience. So we currently and historically have sent some of our patients out of area to centres of excellence elsewhere, some of which are in the Western region. Will that continue, or is there now an expectation that patients in the East will be treated in the East?
Yeah, I'm just reflecting, first of all, the chair of the Golden Jubilee was present at the meeting yesterday, which maybe is an immediate focus, but I'll turn, Geraldine's put her hand up. Geraldine, do you want to take that on?
Yes, thank you. Happy to come in on this. So I'm involved in the orthopaedic subnational work stream, and that's been discussed there. So very much recognising that we do rely on centres in the West, and those connections will continue. So there won't be any significant changes in terms of that capacity. What we are doing, though, is looking about what additional capacity could be brought online in the East across all the boards there. But I think it is fine to give that assurance that actually the Golden Jubilee and the national treatment centres that we access currently will continue. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Colette, you happy with that?
Yes, thank you. That's really helpful clarification.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And obviously the patient journey within all this is absolutely key, isn't it? As a key aspect, it's about sustainable services, about doing our best for our patients that we have as well. So that is a clear priority in all this work as well. Okay, I can't see any other questions or comments. So can we agree the recommendation about the subnational planning, review the information provided in the paper, provide comment on the implications of the new model of subnational planning, and discuss ways in which NHS Grampian's engagement in this development will be maximised? Can we agree the recommendation, please? Thank you very much for that one. All right, then we're turning on to now our performance papers. We've got obviously a couple of very significant papers in this section, and obviously we have these papers having been through PAFIC and been discussed at PAFIC before as well. So can I turn first, before we look at the papers, can I turn to Sandy Riddle, the chair of PAFIC? Is there any comment he wants to make to put in our minds from PAFIC?
Yeah, just some brief comments. Thanks, Chair. So at PAFIC, and it's just a month ago, we did note a very mixed picture in terms of our performance. There are examples of notable progress, we need to say, delivered by staff under enormous pressure. But it is fair to add that although many actions to address performance are underway, some potential solutions are at an exploratory stage or temporary. Also, although welcoming the leadership structures in place, particularly the assurance boards, PAFIC noted that these arrangements were at an early stage and were still settling into their role. We felt quite strongly that keeping that focus, energy and momentum will be crucial here. PAFIC have expressed the expectation that greater detail will be provided on timetabled actions along with clear evidence of impact on performance. We can see from the reports before us today that this is beginning to come through in performance reporting. It's very encouraging. The performance framework that we have in place is still evolving and still needs to develop, but we need to have a much clearer picture as to whether or not current actions are addressing performance and at the pace required. And I suppose just a final comment, Chair, and this is a recurring theme this morning with colleagues, but we can see from the reporting here today the critical links between NHS Grampian and the IJBs, and that if there is withdrawal or limits placed on a service locally, this can in turn represent a significant risk to our performance programme. Therefore, strong collegiate and collaborative leadership and indeed holding to account will be required across the wider system to manage such risk.
Thank you, Sandy. That's a really important thought to put in everyone's heads as we start looking at these papers as well. That whole system work is obviously key to this going forward. So I appreciate that and your comments about leadership as well. And I think, obviously it's really important when we look at these papers, we're looking at what the data tells us, but also significantly, we're also looking at whether we can see a difference being made in terms of outcomes. What is the difference being made by the outcomes being presented to us in the paper? And that's obviously a key way of looking at these papers. I just would like a final comment from me before I pass to the exec to lead as well. And it's really important that the work of the non-execs are doing in preparation with these papers as well and looking at these, and I'd like to commend all the visits that non-execs are taking as well and the conversations they're having with staff as well to help their understanding of the issues being presented here as well. That the support for triangulation that comes from the work that non-execs do out with the committee is absolutely essential as well. So I appreciate that programme of visits that's being taken place. We're going to take this paper. I'm going to hand over to Alex to introduce the How We Doing report in a minute, but we're going to take the paper in sections this time. We've got the 3 sections about the output, about the key programmes of delivery, value and sustainability, which Alex will talk to us about, and we've got planned care, which Phil will talk to us about, and then unscheduled care, which Geraldine will lead us on. I'll take questions on each of those 3 sections in turn, so we have a coherence to the comments being made as well, is our programme for today. So Alex, first of all, please turn to you.
Yeah, Chair, just before we do, I think I just want to acknowledge Sandy's comments around about, how this report has evolved over the last couple of years. And I think what we probably now need to do is to go back and have another look at that and just make sure it's still meeting the requirements of the board, because I do recognise that there is a load of detail in here in trying to answer the questions that you're asking of us. So, and sometimes if we give a lot of information, then sometimes maybe we lose some of the impact of the report. So I'm really mindful of that. I think probably we need to keep this format for the whole financial year until we close this off, but certainly into the new year, I think it'd be worthwhile just having another look over that with board members, just to see if we could present this in a way that maybe reduces the page count and the amount of involved in work for board members and ourselves. In terms of value and sustainability, I would just highlight a couple of points. Obviously, you've seen some of the papers that are on the agenda already, and then there's papers to come in relation to finance. You'll see that all of our indicators are green for value and sustainability, and they have a green dot. We're forecast to make the £45 million deficit, maximum deficit, provided by the government, and we've also forecast to deliver the nearly £62 million of savings that have been placed within our plan. We're also well on our way to developing our plan for 2026-27, and that plan will form the basis of a report to the board on the 19th of March. Chair, this has been a major amount of work that's been undertaken across all of our organisation to deliver these savings, or forecast to be delivering these savings. I think it's really important that I thank all the staff for all their hard work in helping to get to this position. Chair, I'm happy to take questions on this paper. I recognise that the questions on this paper may be similar to the questions on the finance paper, but happy to take anything that the board wishes to ask questions on.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex. And that acknowledgement of staff right across the organisation who've contributed to the work on this absolutely is really important as well. So to reiterate your comments on that one. And just before we look at any questions, that comment you made about looking at the format of the report, the organisation of the report, and how whether it's in the best form to be useful to us as well. Alison, can you note that as an action as well to take forward as well on the action tracker, that comment, that review of the paper? Thank you. So now turn to any questions or comments about the value and sustainability. We're going to take them in sections, value and sustainability now. Thank you, Derek.
Sorry, I'll come in at a later point.
Okay, so it's just value and sustainability at the moment. Any questions or comments about that? And then people might be saving the comments for the finance report as well, where we've always got detail there as well. Dennis.
With regard to value and sustainability, is that sustainability going forward, which is, are we continuing to have discussions then with our clinicians in terms of the impact of some of the things that have been taken forward at pace, I suppose, in some respects, in terms of how sustainable that is in going forward, especially when we're looking at elements of, like, say, unscheduled or planned care. So it really is just, are we still having that touch point conversations with our clinicians to ensure that we are sustainable in going forward in terms of delivering our service to our patient groups? Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, clinical engagements throughout the whole programme. I mean, the Value and Sustainability Board, there's clinical support around about that. Obviously, we've developed that QIA process, and Phil's had a big role in terms of pulling that together. But there's clinical support, and that is led by the clinicians, so the clinicians on this board. So there are areas where we can pick that up. We also report regularly to the ACF on the financial position in the Value Sustainability Programme as well, and if there's any concerns that come through there, then they can be picked up and brought back into the programme side of things. So we're continuing that engagement. We've put these, put these the professionals into this programme to help to address that potential risk, Dennis.
No, I welcome that in terms of students there, Alex, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And building on the risk element as well, as we're moving towards the financial year end, I mean, are we confident that the trajectory we're on at the moment will be maintained, that there's no heightened risks anywhere that we should be aware of and mitigating at the moment? Thank you.
Yes, I'm confident the trajectory will be maintained.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, thank you. I can't see any other questions on value and sustainability. So thank you very much for that, Alex. We'll now turn to Phil and talking about the planned care. Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I'll draw out some of the key headlines across the 6 outcomes, and then with input from colleagues, happy to respond to questions. In relation to our performance for patients over 52 weeks, we are at the end of Q3 ahead of plan for new outpatient appointments, which is positive, and we anticipate very much being able to deliver on our year-end trajectory of 5,839. This does, however, reflect a downward trajectory from our Q2 position, which was submitted and agreed with Scottish Government. This recognises the underperformance currently within one of our independent sector contracts. If we look to our patients waiting over 52 weeks for a treatment time guarantee, we do continue to work to ensure we will deliver our year-end trajectory, although we are a little behind. These are ambitious plans, but we do recognise this is not where we want to be in terms of patient care and patient experience. But as Laura said earlier, we welcome and appreciate the support from Scottish Government for Q1. We will continue to work with government colleagues to understand funding priorities for the remainder of 26-27. In relation to cancer, positive, we continue to see improvements against our 31-day performance. However, our 62-day position does remain challenged as we both aim to improve performance and reduce our backlog, which of course are not mutually exclusive. I think we know solutions here are to reduce demand, improve efficiency, and increase capacity, and our focus through the remainder of this year and into next year will be on those. In relation to our 6-week standard for endoscopy, we are behind at Q3. This is due to limited use of our 4th endoscopy room. I am happy to report that this has increased from 2 days to 3 days per week in January, and teams are working to now put in place plans to increase this to 5 to then return to our year-end trajectory. Finally, in terms of radiology, we have seen a deterioration in Q3. This was due to a loss of ultrasound capacity. We have now commissioned additional capacity on weekends, and we fully expect to return to plan by the end of the year. So I think in short, there have been a number of delivery challenges across Q3. Many of those we have been able to mitigate. We have a good level of confidence in our year-end trajectories for 5 of the 6 outcomes, but we do highlight the concern around our 62-day cancer position. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you for that. Any questions or comments for Phil, please, about planned care? Derek, thank you.
Yes, thanks. I have a couple of points. The first one's on endoscopy. And on this point, I'm in correspondence with Matthew Toms. So I'll just outline what I'm talking to him about, which is that we're talking in the paper about a 6-week, trying to get the waiting time down to 6 weeks. I've been told that the waiting time currently is 2 years. And what I'm talking to Matthew about is how are we going to get from 2 years to 6 weeks? So when I get further information from Matthew, that'll be helpful in that. The second one was a question really on page 36 of the paper, which is page 96 of the pack. There's a table there, and it's talking about the cancer pathways, and it's saying, are we seeing measurable change since the last quarter? And we've got, yes, improved. Now, that's fine. I understand that. But are we seeing measurable change? Yes, maintained. I wonder what yes, maintained meant in terms of measurable change.
Thank you, Derek. Phil, are you able to take those questions, please?
Yeah, I can. So in terms of the endoscopy, there's obviously 4 modalities that make this up. And for lower endoscopy, upper endoscopy, and cystoscopy, we are relatively good. The issue we do have is around our colonoscopy. I have looked at the data in terms of the over 52 weeks, and there are 488 patients that are waiting over 52 weeks. So the 6-week target is the national target that we aim to get towards. We do know some of the complexity of those patients that have longer wait times, but our focus is always to try and reduce those backlogs and meet targets. We recognize, there are some definite challenges on that. On the cancer one, I do believe we are seeing an improved position as I've said, on the 31, but we do have challenges on the 62 days. I may see if anyone else can come in on the definition of maintained. My sense is this is about ensuring that we are sustaining the improvements that we are seeing.
Yeah, would someone like to come in on to add to Phil's answer there, please? Geraldine, thank you.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I think obviously, part of the sustainability is about being able to continue the activity that we've been able to stand up with additional funding. So we are in dialogue with government in relation to the assurance that some of that activity can continue. We're looking particularly at Q1 so that we can continue it there. But again, it's just flagging that obviously we do want to continue to improve on these trajectories as we've started. Thanks.
Thank you. Derek, are you content with the answers?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Derek. Thank you. Colette, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've got one.
Sorry, Colette, we can't hear you very well.
You still hear me? Hang on.
You're very quiet.
Can you hear me now?
That's better, much better.
I'm having trouble with my microphones today. Apologies for that. So I'll be on and off. I just wanted to say that in relation to the 62-day targets, it's actually really, for cancer, it's really helpful to see the breakdown by individual cancer type, where it shows that for the majority of them, there has been an improvement. I then have a general question, which may or may not relate to this, but across all of the planned care, will the subnational work actually escalate our improvement towards meeting our targets? Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, can I turn to you on that one? Subnational work.
Yeah, I I think it's too early to say, to be honest with you, Colette. We've started with orthopaedics, but I think we need to see what the broader programme of work looks like. It's not an area of focus at this stage in terms of subnational specifically, but it's too early days to say. I think as we move on from orthopaedics, there'll be a much broader programme of work in terms of what that looks like by further specialties, but also from a cancer perspective as well. Geraldine, I don't know, you're closer to this in terms of orthopaedics. Can we go any further at this stage?
I think I would agree with what you've outlined, Laura. So obviously orthopaedics is the first specialty to be worked on and at that regional level in subnational planning. So I think we'll see what that plan looks like, what that delivers, and then we'll see what comes after that. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. So work in progress, Colette, I think is the answer to that. Happy, Colette, thank you. Turn to Sandy then, please. Sandy.
Yeah, I think Geraldine and Laura may well have answered this, so sorry. I mean, it's just that bit about mutual aid, and that mutual aid has not yielded the level of benefit that we had originally hoped, and I think there has been an adjustment of trajectories accordingly. And I think the report does contain information in relation to that. It's such a critical area and probably picked up on the subnational work, but I suppose my question is there any potential in the short to medium term for this to turn around, recognizing that all health boards are experiencing a lot of difficulty just now?
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. And obviously we have seen some progress demonstrated here as well. It's important. And Geraldine, do you want to comment on Sandy's point?
Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, I think obviously, building on what was spoken about in the subnational planning, the objectives and principles are very much around, equity of access and reducing variation. So all the right things and all the things that we are working on as well. Obviously, I think there's been a huge amount of progress in terms of reducing our waiting times and working towards those targets. But we have had some challenges along the way, as everyone knows, and have had to adjust some of those targets. But I think in effect, as we've said, the improvements that we're seeing now in the activity are going in the right direction. We've still got some further work to do, and we know we've got some further areas to focus on. So I think it's just about how we can continue to bring the wait times down and reduce those long waits as well. So I think there is a degree of confidence that, again, we've got all the right activity underway, we've got the right plan. We are now starting to look at opportunities for 26-27 as well for each specialty. So those conversations are happening with clinical teams in relation to actually what's next and what could the next opportunity be. So we'll continue to work that up as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Geraldine. Okay, Sandy.
Yeah, I think it's just trying to give the public some tangible kind of commentary in relation to that, there will be increased capacity and that plans are actively happening. So yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And Laura, did you want to come in on that as well?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Sandy, I do agree in terms of mutual aid, it has not yielded perhaps the full benefits that we would have wished to see. But I do think if we look at the Scotland-wide picture, it has impacted fairly significantly to the improvements to reduce 52-week waits and 104-week waits. It has been signalled quite a shift, actually, if you look at it on a national basis. But I think just going back to the subnational work, the essence of all of this, and I know we're looking at this initially through orthopaedics, is what is the best use of capacity across Scotland? That's really where we're coming to with all of this in the starting point. So it's quite a different way of looking at the problem on a national scale. But I do agree with you, from a local perspective, we perhaps haven't seen the benefits that we would have wished to see from a mutual aid perspective. But as I say, nationally, I think the argument will be somewhat different. It's been an instrumental factor in changing and shifting performance. Thanks.
Yeah, and just to build very quickly on that, there's so much learning has come from the process over the last few months as well, that will lead to improvements going forward, I'm sure, as well. That learning is key. Thank you. Hussein, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you to colleagues for the report. I had an interesting thought, and I just wonder if our execs could maybe just comment on this. The KPIs that we use in the How Are We Doing are very helpful. I just wonder, in terms of the broader focus on inequalities, do they also take account of variations in that? Are there particular populations that may or may not be where the inequalities may be exacerbated by that? And is that something that we store internally as data? Albeit I appreciate we've had varied discussions as to how detailed this report should be, but I'm just wondering if that factors in the planning behind the data internally.
Thank you. I don't know, Geraldine Shantini, I don't know who would like to come in on that particular point. How we, Shantini, do you want to come in there?
So I'll start. So yes, we have got the data that, we can look at it by SIMD. So not all the protected characteristics and measures of vulnerable groups that so we don't have comprehensive data to allow us to do a full analysis, but we can certainly look at it by sex and by SIMD and geographical location. So the health intelligence team do look at that regularly, and we're planning a bit more of a deep dive on that over the coming months, and to do a bit of a spotlight report and then surface that through the Area Clinical Forum and CET, etc., so that we're responding to the trends as we're picking them up.
Thank you. Hussein, you content?
Yeah, no, thank you for that assurance. And just maybe just to explain, because I don't think I explained very well the rationale behind my question, and just very briefly, Chair, because I'm mindful of time. I think, I say, the KPIs are very helpful in establishing our general direction of travel, but obviously, and we want to try and apply that fairly to patients right across Grampian. But if in doing so we're looking at, we don't then look beneath that as to who precisely are behind these trends, then there is that risk that there may be certain populations, for whatever reason, have those widening inequalities behind that is not a proportionate application of the trend. So I'm pleased to hear Shantini's response around that deeper dive into the intelligence, and at some point if we could maybe get an update in that, even if it's just to say we haven't identified any anomalies in the SIMD data, or yes we have, and how can we look at that at some point. If we could maybe have an update, Chair, I think that would be helpful in terms of that inequalities lens as well.
Yeah, thank you much, Hussein. I'll leave it to Shantini and the exec team to decide how it would be appropriate and how and when it would be appropriate for such an update. So Shantini is nodding to that. Thank you. Thank you. John, please.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Hussein's asked the first question I had around the equalities, so that's fine, and that's just to sort of stage on in terms of being able to understand what's happening. I just wanted to say that I think the report is really helpful. It's probably the most meaningful picture I've experienced in all my years on the board, in being able to understand what's happening here. The one caveat in my head is you get what you measure. So what are we not measuring? But it is absolutely right that we have this focus and get to grips on this. So it was just to commend those behind producing this. I think the other thing was, in reading it, I'm seeing the targets, and obviously I'm seeing the reds, etc., where those are appropriate for that. But I'm also reading it to look at the trend. So are we going in the right direction? And I think Geraldine did mention this, but I would welcome when we're getting the further reports, that there's something specific about that side of it, the sustainability of the trend. Because for me, we're going to be here in months ahead, and being able to see that sustainability is key. And obviously issues about capacity and demand around that. One quick question, because it's in the reports here that there is an interplay between planned care performance and unscheduled care performance. That's mentioned there, and clearly we've had the Financial Recovery Board, which is looking at the wider picture. It's maybe something in the future, being able to sort of look ahead to how these different pieces of work are going to impact on each other in a kind of phased basis. So I'm thinking community hospitals review that's going on might have a timeline which is a bit longer, but being able to get a picture of how that's going to help sustain some of the changes. So it's just an example of how we might get information in future reports which enhances what we've got, but definitely saying this from the caveat that this is the most meaningful picture I've seen in several years. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback, John. And I think that point about sustainability of the changes, we can see the direction of travel on the diagrams that we've got in front of us today, on the data we've got in front of us. But I suppose the question is around sustainability. How much of those are dependent on the interventions that are being put in place for now, and will we be able to fly long term as a result of those interventions, or is that something for the moment, I suppose, and sustainability isn't there? Geraldine, do you want to come in, please?
Yes, thanks. I do think it is a really helpful comment and observation, because obviously we're reporting on planned care and unscheduled care separately, but actually we're recognising that they are very much interdependent, and particularly we recognise that our surgical specialties also have unplanned care, and our medical specialties have planned care. So that very much it is that holistic picture which we can think about maybe how we describe that slightly differently in our next iteration. I do think we tend to obviously recognise some of the capacity challenges we have in the balance of delivering both, and we are, as I mentioned, looking at KPIs for next year, so we'll have a think about maybe how we tie some of those together. Thanks.
Thank you. And do you want to comment briefly on the sustainability side of things as well, about whether the interventions are leading to sustainable change for planned care? And Phil, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, I think we probably have to be honest with ourselves. There's a few parts to this. One is that we need to reduce demand. There's a piece of what we need to do across the system to make sure that we enable that to happen. I think we're doing a lot to improve internal efficiency and productivity to make sure we can get as many patients through with the capacity that we have. But I do think it's a fair reflection to say that the funding that we are getting from Scottish Government is making a material difference in addressing our backlogs, and working with them to agree a funding package within their priorities for next year will really be key to ensuring that we maintain the momentum that we know we will deliver now through the remainder of this year.
Yeah, thank you. That leads me actually onto the question I was going to ask with relation to this. You mentioned productivity in that as well as a key part of the picture. We've got the intervention at the moment happening, but obviously we need to work on our productivity as well in terms of looking at those waiting lists, in terms of making best use of the theatres, making good use of this workforce we have as well to do the work. Can you give us assurance about that work around productivity as well to get the performance we require for people across Grampian? Thank you. Phil?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So part of the external review highlighted opportunities across theatres, outpatient endoscopy. Those now firmly sit within the recommendations on the Planned Care Programme Board. Those have been described and discussed twice in January and February. We do expect plans to come back in March to narrate what we think the additional productivity opportunity we can deliver across both theatres, outpatients and endoscopy.
Thank you. Okay, and thank you very much for that, Phil. John, I jumped in with my question on the back of your question. Are you content with the answers for that? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, John. Joyce, please.
Thanks. I'd just like to pick up on something Phil has said a couple of times. He mentioned it with regard to the 62-day cancer, and again then in unscheduled care, and it was about reducing demand. I don't fully understand how you can reduce demand for 62-day cancer. That could be completely my fault, but I do understand about unscheduled care reducing demand, but it requires a lot more preventative work. So could Phil clarify what sort of things are being done or planned to be done for reducing demand in these areas? Thanks.
Thank you. Is that for you, Phil, or for someone else?
Well, I'll start today. So it's just, I think my reducing demand was more a comment about the more holistic, wider health. It wasn't specific to 62-day cancer, so I'll clarify that. I think there's lots of work being done across the organisation. I'm not going to speak fluently to it. Gerald, you may want to come in on points, but it will form part of the wider piece of work we're doing across both unscheduled care and planned care.
Yeah, thank you. Geraldine, do you want to comment about reducing demand in planned care? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I think what we recognise is that patients with long-term conditions or who are waiting a long time for procedures sometimes do then need emergency care. So that does increase demand. So we recognise that. So obviously, if we are able to bring forward waiting times and improve in that area, we will then see benefits, I think, in some of our emergency demand, so that we understand that. Obviously, in terms of other demand areas, I think what we're talking about really is failure demand a lot of the time, so people not being able to access the right care first time that they need. So there is obviously an opportunity for us to think how we can do that differently, and that is being picked up. This year's unscheduled care improvement plan, I think, is probably more about the sort of immediate interventions we can do, but I think looking forward into next year, and I see Shantini maybe wants to come in, we are thinking how do we actually embed prevention in our unscheduled care improvement plan as well, so that it's much more visible and much more tangible.
Thank you, Geraldine. Shantini put her hand down. Does that mean that Geraldine answered said what you were going to say? Is that fine?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just, Geraldine said it, and it's,
fine, then we'll move on then. Thank you
demonstrating
very
the
much.
commitment to doing that as well,
Yeah.
which is great. So we really are working together on trying to make that happen.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. I can't see any other questions on planned care, and we have kind of mentioned unscheduled care, but we'll go into that in more detail now. Geraldine, do you want to talk about the unscheduled care bit? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So you'll see from the report that we are seeing some positive indicators in relation to progress on a range of different aspects for unscheduled care. And I think this reflects the positive progress that we've seen in implementing the aspects of the unscheduled care improvement plan, which is now well underway. I think in terms of the context, we have experienced ongoing high demand for our unscheduled care services, particularly over the winter period. We had the flu rates were high in December, and then obviously that led into a period of adverse weather. So again, just recognising the operational environment that we are working within. So a few things we'd like to highlight, which you'll see from the report in terms of the Q3 indicators. And again, these are very much matching what we're experiencing from those interventions in the plan itself. So the extension of the hospital at home service, which has allowed more people to be able to access that service. So that's hospital level care provided at home, and also saves on hospital admissions and hospital bed days, which again, better outcomes for patients recognised being able to receive that care and treatment at home. We have also had a positive period where our delayed discharges were reduced, and I think it was highlighted earlier on in terms of being able to move patients who were waiting on their long-term care destinations on more quickly, which again has really benefited in terms of that patient getting to the right place as soon as possible. We have also seen benefits from the increased staffing levels in our flow navigation centre, and also other pathways which have come on board in terms of being able to access that professional to professional line for advice and alternatives where hospital attendance may not be the best or most appropriate journey for a patient. So again, we've seen an increase in contacts to the centre, which is positive, and also an increase in redirections, which is also showing us that it is doing what we are looking for it to do. And I suppose the final work stream to mention really is around about our ambulatory care, which we've extended the opening hours for. And again, this is a very positive aspect, because it means that patients who don't need an admission can be rapidly assessed, diagnosed and treated, and then discharged home as quickly as possible. And again, that also means, you know, better outcome for our patients there. We are still seeing challenges, obviously, in our 4-hour access performance. So whilst the metrics kind of one step below that are showing real positive direction and green shoots, our focus now going into this quarter is very much about how can we improve our 4-hour access standard and continue to bring down our ambulance wait times. So that's very much the focus that we're having in relation to how we do that. And related to the improvement plan, we also have operational improvement work underway on a daily basis, which is led by by our site director, and that's the 10 before 10 initiative, which I think has been mentioned before, in terms of making sure that we can discharge our patients home as soon as they're ready to go, as early in the day as possible, and then that helps movement from our emergency department and initial assessment unit up into the wards, just so that then people can be in the right place as early as possible. I'll pause there, Chair, but I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Geraldine. And Dennis is first. Thank you, Dennis.
First thing I should say, Geraldine, is I recognise that there is green shoots here, and can I also say, and it's reiterating maybe what Alison said in her initial comments this morning. We actually did make a visit with ED and AMIA, and the energy and enthusiasm, commitment of our staff is to be commended. In terms of going forward and looking at, again, how sustainable we are, we're actually looking at improvements. We're seeing the green shoots, but do you envisage moving forward, and it's maybe a question that maybe is difficult to answer at the moment, but in terms of the potential walk-in centres for our GP or primary care, do you envisage that they may potentially take away some of our ED front door, represent people coming through the front door, shifting in the future? Because it's a fairly high percentage of people still coming to ED who are not requiring that intervention, and are basically going home and asked to go back to primary care. So it's just, how do we then get that messaging across in terms of that unavoidable sort of front door representation from some of our ED people? And I'm just thinking, is that redirection with the potential for that walk-in centres? Do you see that maybe being a positive thing? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. I think there's a wide question there as well about right care, right place as well. And before I come to Geraldine, I see Fiona's put a hand up, so I'll come to Fiona, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we're working through, and we're certainly watching how Lothian are setting up their GP walk-in centre. Dennis, it opened last week, I think it was, and it's been quite a strict criteria on who can go and what can go. And I think we're just, as we say, we just got the letter last week formally. We got an email about 3 weeks ago formally saying that Grampian has been selected, and we got the letter last week confirming that for the GP walk-in centre. So plans are ongoing at the minute. We'll absolutely be working with our colleagues in acute sector just to make sure that we have got a smooth pathway, but we are just still on the working and the planning at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Geraldine, do you want to add anything about front door demand as well?
Yeah, thank you. I think it all helps, and I think it'll be really interesting to see with the walk-in centres again, if that does give people an alternative to presenting to an acute hospital. So I think it is a watch this space and see, but again, it all helps.
Thank you, Geraldine, and thank you. Richie, please.
Yeah, thanks again, and thanks, Geraldine. You may, in fact, have partly answered my initial question. I've got one sort of general question and one more specific one. The covering report, which I, again, like others, I really appreciated the content of it, and I did like the summary and the assessment bits just to help us kind of zero in on some of the issues that the report covers. The covering report talks about the Q3 data leading to the conclusion that achievement of 25-26 performance targets by the end of Q4 will require even more focus on high impact activities in Q4 as far as resource and capacity constraints allow. I just wondered, in terms of unscheduled care, if it was clear what those high impact activities are or were, and if there's anything that Geraldine could point to that by way of examples of that.
Thank you, Richie. Geraldine?
Yes, thank you. So we have done an assessment of actually what are the high impact projects within the Unscheduled Care Improvement Plan through some logic modelling, which our health intelligence colleagues supported, which was a really excellent piece of work. And yes, that's really helped us narrow down onto a few key aspects where we know we'll have a big impact with them. So one of them is about rebalancing our bed base so that we can better meet demand and capacity across medical specialties, and particularly for the older age group as well. So we have a change project project underway in relation to this just now, which has held its first workshop. It's clinically led by the Deputy Medical Director for Unscheduled Care, and they're having their second workshop next week, and that's informing an options appraisal, again in relation to how we can reconfigure, so it's not additional beds, but it's how we can reconfigure our beds to right size them for the demand that we need. This we know will obviously be a better experience for our patients. It'll mean they'll receive the right care as quickly as possible, and we know that the evidence tells us that this will reduce patients' length of stay. So again, that will mean a better outcome all round. So that's one of the change projects, which is obviously a bigger piece of work. It is a bit more complex to implement with the number of colleagues that will be involved in relation to taking that forward. And we have had really good engagement, as I've mentioned, with our clinical colleagues in relation to those discussions. One of the other aspects is about flow and how we can improve flow. So there's a couple of things that are important here. One of them is how we utilise our integrated flow hub. So that is about bringing together the discharge teams that work for the health and social care partnerships and that work for the acute hospital into one hub, so that they're actually all working together as a holistic team in a seamless way. And that really means that we've got our processes, discharge processes, as slick as possible, and that we have our processes really as efficient as possible for that. So that's another workshop next week as well, really to move that forward at pace, because we can see the benefits of that. And I think that then links into one of the other aspects, which is about how we utilise our community hospitals and step down to those. And I know that Lee and her colleagues have been involved in doing a huge amount of work in relation to those processes, criteria, actually understanding how they can be utilised maybe in a slightly different way or in a more consistent way. So these are the main areas that we're now turning our attention to focus on. Thanks.
Thanks, Richie. Happy?
Yeah, thanks. And if Alison just said that my specific one, and it would be early days, but the paper does mention an assurance review of each USC unscheduled care project. I just wondered, and that was take place in January. I just wonder if any initial comments that you're able to make on that as well. Thanks.
Geraldine, any initial comments now, or will that come later to us?
Happy just to give an overview of that. So that was very much an assurance review and a stock take with all of the workstream leads in relation to progress that they'd made, any recruitment activity, and then their plans for the next few months, and also what support did they need? Were there any barriers? Was there anything that was holding back delivery? So I think that's given us a really good handle on where all the work streams are at. I think there's been a lot of really positive progress, and again, any challenges with recruitment or with more short-term funding or fixed-term posts, we can flag those up early on and consider actually what does that then mean for our longer-term work. So that's all been taken through the Unscheduled Care Programme Board and a sort of RAG status level. And I think we can see from that, the learning, I think it has been that the services that were already existing, but then were expanding, have actually been able to move forward quicker, just because they already are underway. The ones that are taking a little bit longer are the new services, or the ones that are involving more of a significant redesign. Just by nature, there is more work, more change activity involved. So those ones are probably a little bit further behind, but again, useful for us just to be aware of that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And John, do you want to come in on that as well?
Yeah, it is. It's really welcome what Geraldine's saying there. And in the report, page 56 talks about getting more focus on this, and that's clearly evident. I was on a visit as well, Alison, and seeing what is going on, and that it is very clear that focus is coming in. But page 55 has also got that important point of considering if the current actions are sufficient. So that assessment piece is really, really important. And I think for our ongoing assurance around this, being able to see that people are on the case for that and being able to see it joined up across the system, that's the kind of two-pronged assurance that I think we want to get from the reports as we go forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to make a similar point in relation as well to the key area we've got at the moment of that 4-hour ED waiting time, that we've got to do something about that, and understanding the changes that will make a difference to that. And my question was going to be around, are we flexible enough to see what's going well and develop more of that? But I think in your work that you described there, Geraldine, we are being responsive to what works, what we need to do more of, and hopefully, because the aim has to be that 4-hour access is the figures are improved on that one. That really needs to be a focus going forward. So I think all these elements are really key in that, and the flexibility being shown. Laura, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you. Just about join up again and again. Going back to the subnational work, to let board members know, Geraldine and I are very involved in the unscheduled care work from a subnational perspective, and that's really about reducing variation across the East, but also the West, around access, performance and outcomes. And I think, again, it's early days, but I do think there'll be opportunities that fall out of this that will only build further on our own improvement work. And the areas of focus for that subnational work and in scheduled care, flow navigation centres and command centres, escalation framework and virtual beds, the three big headlines. So I think there's only further opportunities to lean into there. Shantini, sorry, I overlooked yourself. You're involved in that work as well. So again, I just think wanted to join the dots up there, but fundamentally this work from a subnational perspective is about what is the strategic vision and opportunity around unscheduled care in Scotland, because at the moment there isn't one. So this is a huge opportunity. It's a huge piece of work and a big conundrum and challenge, but I think it's really helpful that NHS Grampian are very much in the leadership space here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Laura. Thank you for coming there. I can't see any other indications, so I'll refer colleagues to the recommendations in the paper. There's for endorsement, for assurance, and a decision around approving the Q3 How Are We Doing report and the continued utilisation of the performance model within the performance assurance framework to ensure activity translates into measurable improvements across the 3 change programmes. Can we agree those recommendations, please? Thank you. And then we move on to item 2, the operational improvement plan. Alex, do you want to talk to us about this one, please?
Yeah, I think you can see the progress that we're making in regards to the operational improvement plan. Chair would just advise that we just go straight to questions on this one. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alex. Any questions about the operational improvement plan, please? Leading on from what we've just had, discussions we've just had. It's very much linked, aren't they? Derek, please. Oh, sorry, Kathleen first. Apologies, Kathleen.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's picking up probably from the last conversation, and it's particularly around the shifting the balance of care area and about the GP recruitment and retention issues. And there's a delay to the programme, but have we got assurance that we're going to be able to recruit to these walk-ins that are going to be shared across Moray? Because we're all across the 3 areas, Aberdeen City, Shire and Moray, because it'd be great to source them, but are we going to be able to recruit to them?
I think that Fiona, do you want to comment on this? Fiona?
Yeah, so I think the model that we're looking at, Kathleen, is that we're going to put SLAs in place with our GP practices. So we will ask them to help support that, and we're also working with GMED. So recruitment and retention is a key step or a key focus for all of us, for primary care colleagues and GPs. But yeah, the model that we're going to try and do is work with the workforce we've got. While we take time. It's an 18-month project that we're working on, so it's not permanent funding. So we have to be really thoughtful about how we do this, Kathleen, how we progress the model. So working with the teams that we've got, and we will be looking at, wider than just GPs, looking at our multidisciplinary team around that programme of work as well, including our ANPs and such like. So trying to work within the resources, but actually just how can we make this be sustainable when we know the challenges, the recruitment challenges we've got in the North East. We've also, and I'm going to just mention it because I think it's the right thing to do. We're also working with the University of Aberdeen and around a GP teaching hub, which is going to be based on the ARI site. And again, that's to try and make it much more attractive for our medical students to come through and into a workforce for primary care. So I think that's a really exciting model that we are going to hopefully launch in the summertime. And as I say, that will hopefully give people that real understanding about primary care and hopefully attract more people into that side of the profession. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Derek, please.
Thank you. As the board's pedant-in-chief, if I look at page 110, and we're talking about the paragraph 2.3 and the second last paragraph, and the final line has shifted from complete to significant delay. That I don't understand how you can go from complete to significant delay. And I just wonder, should that read has shifted from will be complete to significant delay?
Okay, which topic are you on? You've referred the page number. Can you, for clarity, can you say what part of the IIP it's relating to?
It's in the assessment, paragraph 2.3.
Just a general assessment, okay.
In the covering board paper, Chair,
Okay,
rather than the report itself.
Okay, that helps then. Thank you. Alex, do you want to come in then?
Yeah, I wonder if Preston's here, if he's got the detail around about that one.
Thanks, Alex. I'm just trying to search for that at the moment. I think I'm looking at a cover paper and it says, of the remaining 4, 3 anticipate a minor delay, while 1 within the prevention area has shifted from complete to significant delay. I believe the details probably in the report in itself.
Yeah, Shantini is just indicating Preston there. I don't know if she wants to come in as well. Sorry, Preston. Shantini.
Yeah, so this relates to the cardiovascular disease one, and so we've had conversations about this one before. It's the direct enhanced service that GP practices receive funding from Scottish Government from, and it's about identifying and identifying people who live in deprived areas with risk factors for cardiovascular disease and initiating treatment. So the uptake of that has been very has not been optimal, and what we're doing is putting programs in place to support them or to work with people to encourage access in taking up that scheme. So that is all going ahead. There is no target uptake as such, so and it's we're waiting. This scheme runs in until July 26, and we're waiting for details as to whether it will continue beyond there. So I'm not entirely sure why it's come up as anticipate significant delay, but because it is what it is, and we're doing as much as we can to optimize it, if you see what I mean.
Okay, so maybe there's something about clarity about what's presented in the paper rather than what's actually happening, because you're talking about the work being done to meet that target date of July 27. Someone else indicated there, Hugh, it was Hugh. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, it was just therefore to give a really clear and specific answer to Derek's detailed question rather than pedantry, I think I would say, Derek. So the opening line of that one is that the status has changed from blue to red. So yes, will be complete to anticipate significant delay, not from complete. So it's a wording issue in the cover paper. It should be will be complete.
Yeah, thank you. So we can correct the wording issue going forward. We can note that needs to be changed. Thank you very much for that. Thank you. And thanks for raising it, Derek. Colette, please.
Thank you, Chair. My comment's a general one, but it comes up a few times, not just in this paper, but also in the How Are We Doing paper. And I'm referring specifically here to page 128, where it's talking about improving access to health and social care services through digital and technological innovation. And in a number of places throughout all of the papers for today, we talk about delays relating to having information governance approval because of the risk, obviously, of hacking, etc. I'm just wondering to what extent that delay risks delivery a number of these strands of work, and what's being done or what can be done to improve the approvals that need to be done to take this work forward.
I think it's a very helpful question, Colette. Thanks for raising that one. It was on my list too. Hugh, please.
Yeah, happy to come in on that. So there's been additional investment in the team, Colette, through this year, which has involved the addition of a new Band 7 post into the team. So that's at Senior Information Governance Officer level. There's also been some additional Band 3 recruitment to support the statutory work, which otherwise adds a burden to the more senior members of the team. So there has been significant investment, noting our financial position that has happened and is in the process of happening throughout this last year. There is also, however, a combination of medium to long-term planned leave and medium-term unplanned leave among senior members of the team, which is impacting on capacity. So there are weekly conversations between myself as the responsible executive and the senior members of the team, where we review all of the escalated pieces of work, and there are very frequent and numerous escalations that you'll be, I'm sure you can imagine, and those are prioritised and put into essentially priority order based on a combination of clinical impact, service impact, financial impact, and that's an ongoing dynamic process. We've also, where it is possible, to outsource some of the work if something is, for example, a national project, and if some of that work can be done by another health board and then reviewed by our own team rather than done by our own team, then that is done, and the same is true regionally. So there are some projects at the moment, for example, where NHS Highlands team are working on the assurance work, and others where colleagues in Central Belt are working on the assurance work. So we're trying very hard to prioritise within a very challenged and constrained current set of circumstances.
Thank you. Colette, do you want to come back and give assurance there?
Yeah, it was just really, where does the risk for this sit, and does it need to be more acutely highlighted in future reports? Because, you know, as we move towards an increasing number of digital projects, this remains a considerable risk to delivery.
Yeah, I think we've had information governance questions at several committees and papers as well, haven't we? Can we maybe take this forward as an action to look at the appropriate way to have assurance around that, whether it's a board briefing, something at seminar or whatever? Can we leave that with Hugh to think about how you can keep us updated on the work around information governance?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. Well, you can decide the appropriate way to do that, but it's obviously an area of concern. Thank you. John, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just check that we'll minute something on that cardiovascular just for accuracy? And I'm also thinking about our colleagues in primary care. If it isn't actually a target that we're missing, it could well be that we're actually making progress. So can I just check that we'll minute that as the actual status and position on that?
Yeah, we'll need to minute the change to the paper, and Shantini, the comments you made, you put your hand up there as well. Can you help with the wording for that as well, please?
Yeah. All I put my hand up for was to say that we are making, we are seeing a month-on-month increase, but nationally the uptake is at 33%. So the real risk there is that not 100% of the funding available is going to be taken up. But we are doing as much as we can, but it's not totally within our gift to make that happen.
Okay, so the minute that the progress is being made on that, and also the points that Fiona made about GPs as well, the minute the progress being made there as well. Thank you. I'm sure we can make sure that's done. Hussein, please.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose this comes on the back of partly Derek's question and partly some of the other comments that have been made, and we're making good progress at the moment based on the reports, but it does beg the question in respect of that point around the delay, and I recognise the explanation that's been given. But in order to make sure that we continue to make progress, I just wondered if someone could maybe give us some explanation as to what the rationale is around at what point does a delay become something that requires more formal escalation. I appreciate my impression is that CET already have good oversight of this. I think monthly was mentioned. Apologies if I misunderstood that. And we do want to allow flexibility for our teams to be able to flex as a situation develops. But at what point does that formality, does a delay become something we need to seriously start worrying about? What level is that?
I think I'll turn to Alex because he led on this paper in the first place. When do we have to get concerned about delays?
Yeah, I think one of the things I would say in the OIP process, we've kind of developed this process meet a requirement that came up during the year, which was we needed to monitor the OIP every meeting. So I mean, I think that was one of the requests from through the board, through the board's chairs, that we had that in place. So what I would say is that, you know, we've evolved that process from where we were at the start to where we've got to at the moment. We do have conversations at the chief executive team around the OIP. We also have conversations about the HAWD. Our most recent conversation was about linking all of those kind of performance places with risk as well. So that I think that was another point that had come forward from the board, is that, okay, you're making all these actions and how is it impacting on the risk side of things? So I think, you know, we've evolved this OIP into a kind of, you know, a report that we hope gives assurance to the board that we, you know, on where we are in relation to performance. We could certainly have a look at what the escalation around about that is, and we could certainly look at a bit more of the form around about the scoring in relation to that. But I think that this one is one that is kind of just evolved throughout the year, and the report's evolved as we've got there. So I think it's just a case of we did this to meet that purpose. I don't know if next year, for example, there will be another OIP or not, or whether we'll be monitoring our own strategic objectives and plans. So we need to, we need to think about that as we go forward as well. But certainly, we do discuss these things at the chief executive team, and they are flagged.
Yeah, I think we'll leave it at that now, but how the process developed and how it will continue to develop depending on what's required as we move into the next financial year. So thank you. We'll leave it at that at the moment, I think. Thanks, Hussein. Can we turn to the recommendations on the operational improvement plan? We're noting the development, as Alex has just said, about the OIP response template. We're endorsing the Q3 organisational performance position, and we are taking assurance that the appropriate actions, risks and mitigations have been identified across the 4 critical areas of the OIP, and consider whether the level of assurance provided is sufficient in relation to delivery expectations set out by the Scottish Government. So can we agree that the level of assurance provided is sufficient? That's our decision as part of this as well. Can we agree the first point and decide that about the level of assurance, please? It's sufficient. Thank you. I can't see anyone disagreeing, so we will agree those recommendations. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to ask Alex a question here about, Alex, do you want to carry on with the finance report now, or do you want to have a break first? Are you?
I'm happy to go, but if we need to break, I'll happily do that too. Happy with that.
Can we continue with the finance report?
Okay.
No one's saying not, so I'll turn to you, Alex. Thank you, Alex.
Okay, thank you. Chair, thanks very much. I think this report outlines the financial position. As you'll see, our internal forecast is that we'll now deliver a position lower than the £45 million deficit support funding. So that was the maximum level of deficit support funding provided by the Scottish Government, and we're now anticipating that we will be slightly below that in relation to this report. In my introduction to my previous report, I thanked all the teams for their hard work in supporting the organisation to recover financially. However, I would also highlight to the board that we still have much work to do in order to return to financial balance. My assessment is that our financial position is stabilised, and the financial position for both the delegated and non-delegated services are improving. We need to maximise on this next financial year and deliver a position better than the maximum allowable deficit of £36 million. Once we do this, we'll be in touch and distance of getting back to financial balance over the next couple of financial years. This will not be an easy task, but I'm confident it can be done if we continue to build on all the good work undertaken this financial year. We are making good progress on our financial plan for next financial year. We submitted the draft financial plan to the Scottish Government, and the comments back from that were positive. We still have a gap to get us back to the £36 million. However, we are also confident that we will close this gap prior to the final submission of this plan. Chair, I'm happy to take any comments on the paper. I've also got Phil, who's had a big impact on the Value Sustainability Programme, and Sarah Irvin here in relation to some of the finances.
Thank you very much, Alex. Are there any questions or comments from board members, please? Derek, please.
Thank you. Can I just say before I start that the amount of savings that we've been taking out is phenomenal, and just the effort by everybody to do that, I just think requires commending. I mean, we've never made savings on this scale before. So I just want to say well done to those who are involved in that. Right, on to my question. Alex, on page 152, in the table, we show it, which is the 25-26 forecast, we show savings and other cost reductions and technical adjustments at 49.2 million for the forecast outturn. Yet on page 163 on the value and sustainability, we're making savings of 61.9. So the question really is, what's the difference between the 49.2 and the 61.9?
Sarah, I think Alex was trying to find it. Sarah, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Derek. This is just about how on page 152, it's about how we're presenting it. So the 49.2 that you reference includes doesn't include the IJB savings, and with them delivering additional savings that are included in the figure that's on the second page, you know, the 61.9 figure. So it's largely to do with the IJB savings, and I would say some of the differences is those technical adjustments that we do on a year-to-year basis that support some of the new cost pressures.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah, for coming in with that one. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. Thanks.
Thank you. Richie, please.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. Just a couple of brief comments, really. Firstly, just to agree with Alex and Derek, just to commend the efforts in getting us to this place, which is really promising in terms of the in-year position, and recognising it's not just the finance team, it's the teams across the piece that all make this happen, if you like. So just to commend that. And part of the, I guess, our role is around that assurance and that trajectory that we talked about earlier. And I think one of the things that's certainly given me some additional assurance, not just as part of the board meetings, but the Financial Recovery Board, has been the consistency in terms of the depth and quality of information coming through has been really good. So there've been, and I hope this comment doesn't go back to bite me in due course, but the lack of surprises, if I can put it that way, and the kind of the steady way in which it's been managed, that gives me some real assurance around some of the, I guess, the core work that's taking place. So as Alex says, then hopefully that gives us some confidence about the year-end position. And the final comment, again, just to agree with Alex, with all that, it's incredibly important we keep it going. It's incredibly important to have that grip and control to see through not just the end of this year, but into our plans and delivery for next year as well. So while it's good so far, we just cannot take the foot off the gas. So thanks, that was my comments.
Thank you for that, Richie, and I reiterate all those comments you've made there as well. Thank you. Dennis, please.
Thank you very much. And it's maybe slightly left field, Alec, but in terms of going forward and maintaining our financial stability, how does that then align to some of the things that are coming up? Say, for instance, with unscheduled care, or later on we hear in the maternity papers that we've got an area of workforce recruitment being required to actually sustain what we do in terms of that patient delivery. So it is really just about how do we then ensure that our financial envelope is aligned to our recruitment that is required going forward, and how does that what does that mean for you in terms of that balancing the budgets going forward?
Thank you, Dennis. Alex.
Yeah, a couple of things I'll just say in relation to that. Obviously, you know, the board's benefited from additional investment in relation to the unscheduled care and planned care plans that have come about. So, you know, the improvements in those trajectories have largely been funded from that additional money that's come in. And I think I was just looking at, I think it was in total that's around £21 million this year. So there's been a significant investment in trying to move the performance in relation to that. We have put those vacancy control processes in place. They are working well. I think they're working better than they were previously, and there is conversations at these from a clinical perspective. So if there is a clinical need for these posts to come in, then that is taken into account when making those decisions. So that's some of the work that's been done over the last wee while in relation to that. It will be a challenge to get back to financial balance. I'm not going to deny that, but I think given the progress that we've seen this year and how we're getting on with developing next year's financial plan, we are in a good place to go and get back to financial balance that we really must build on and keep that momentum going.
Yeah, thank you. And it relates to the priorities that we'll be looking at for next year as well, and resourcing those with the money that comes in and using the money wisely for the priorities of the organisation as well. I think that's an important context as well. Thank you, Dennis. And finally, John, please.
Yeah, just a quick question. Obviously, this doesn't impact immediately, but looking at the infrastructure and the backlog around that, is Alan able to give an indication of when that might come and bite in terms of impact on revenue budgets if we're not able to get to grips with the backlog?
Yeah, thank you. Alan, are you able to come in at this point?
Yeah, I suppose a good question, John. It's quite hard, because we all know the current challenges we're under. The CDU is just one of them, and how you've got to be reactive. We try and be as preventative as we can, and I think we presented to you before, how we manage our capital and how we try and invest it in. That will have an impact on reducing our revenue and our highest risk buildings. But the gap between the capital we actually need or the replacement of buildings against what we actually receive is quite big. So I couldn't sit here and say that the infrastructure won't have an impact on it, but we know the majority of the concerns that we've got in the areas of infrastructure that is concerned, and we're trying to either move out them or replace them or put our capital investment in it and use it differently. So that's all we can do. We've been fortunate enough in regards to the CDU with some of the revenue costs attached with it. We were able to utilise some the money that we'd had laid aside with Alex and Sarah in regards to some reserves, and also obviously the infrastructure budget was hit with that a bit. However, we're still in line to make the savings that we're asked to do. So it is a challenge, John. Will it come back to us? I don't think we can answer that question, but all we can do is try and do what's within our gift and try and invest, highlight our high risk areas and make sure we can keep it going for that longer term until we've got a long-term plan, which we've spoke about today, the whole system stuff, whether it's our own stuff or if it's part of a regional network.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really important for us to know that you have the awareness of everything that's needed. And I think we saw during the time of the CDU being out as well, the importance of working with other boards as well. And so that, that subnational space and working together becomes important in this aspect as well, I think, to support things. John, do you want to come back with anything, or you?
No, I think it's just that we've got our eyes open to that aspect of it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. So with that, there's no one else indicating. So we'll turn to the recommendations, discussing and noting the board's financial position for the period to December 25-26 and the current forecast year-end position, endorse the actions being taken to develop a 3-year financial plan and medium-term financial framework. Can we agree those recommendations, please? Thank you. And now I turn to the IJB financial report, which was trailed earlier and partly answered earlier as well, I think. So we'll close it off at this point as well here. Alex, IJB finance.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to highlight, in one of the appendices, we've got Q2 information. We do actually have Q3 information for Aberdeen City, and I will arrange to get that put down the board ASAP. The position with regards to the IGBs is, we continue to meet. We had a conversation earlier. I think we recognise that the deficit support funding and trying to reduce that is an important part of our recovery in terms of NHS Grampian, and the board, the IGBs recognise that as well from those conversations. We've had good conversations in relation to 2026-27 and going forward with our colleagues, and that certainly formed the basis of that of the meeting on the 13th. We also discussed how we consolidate around a critical path to improving the 2027-28 budget, and certainly the chief finance officers have had an initial meeting to think about how we can do that. One of the other areas, or two of the other areas that we're particularly interested in terms of how we work with our IJBs is around about how we can do things once for Grampian, but also how we can think about what our shared risks are, and that was certainly some of the work that came through. So a very productive meeting, a lot of consensus and agreement, and I've got a note from that meeting that once it's been signed off, I will send that note around the board so that you can get full oversight of the conversations that were had. In relation to the financial position of the IJBs themselves, I think you can see from the report the IJB positions are improving, or at least stabilising, and from the conversations that I had earlier in the week, it sounds as if that trajectory is consistent and maintaining. Chair, that's all I was going to say.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll note that note coming round as an action as well. You'll be sending that round to update everyone. So thanks very much for that. Questions or comments for Alex, please? It's an area that we kind of touched on earlier at various points in the meeting, haven't we? The importance of working together and the assurance that that's being done in this way as well. Okay, and the assurance about the position of IJBs at the moment, given this paper as well, is good to hear as well. No comments? Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for the information, Alex. We'll turn to the recommendation to discuss and note the update on the Integration Joint Board's financial position for the period 25-26. Discussed and noted. Thank you very much. And very belatedly and very importantly, a comfort break now. Can I suggest we come back at 12:45, please? 12 minutes, 12:45. Thank you. Thank you. It's 12:45. Can I ask board members to put their cameras back on, so if possible, so I can see that they're here? Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Let's get started then as well. Thank you. So welcome back. I take you now to item 10 on the paper, which is a psychology update of special measures. I've got June and Sean Harper, June Brown and Sean Harper going to present on this one, please. Can I turn to you, June, first of all? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You've got the paper in front of you. This paper's here to give the board an update on the improvement measures that are in place in relation to psychological therapies across NHS Grampian, and really to recognise the significant work that's taken place to improve our waiting times in relation to psychological therapies. I'm going to hand over to Sean Harper, Dr. Sean Harper, who's here, who is the Director of Psychology, and as well as Dr. Rachel Smith, who is supporting the CAMS work. So I will just hand over to him for some quick key messages. Thank you.
Thank you very much, June. Welcome, Sean, as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'll just try and give a little bit overview of the paper. Hopefully it's relatively self-explanatory, and then open up for questions. Thanks for the invitation today to present to the board. So this really firstly is about, just to be clear, about our enhanced support we have with the Scottish Government to in terms of psychological therapies standard for waiting times, which requests us in adult services and CAM services to meet 90% of patients from referral to treatment time within 18 weeks, which is a standard we value and we value hugely, I think, within what our capacity is within health to deliver services, psychological therapy services, as quickly as possible to our patients is one of the most effective things we can do from a preventative perspective. So we welcome the standard. We've made, I think, really quite substantial progress over the last few years
that we would measure specifically around the psychological therapy specification and the CAM specification, both of which referenced in the paper, which outlines the kind of operational and structural elements of service delivery that are recommended to best offer psychological therapies for patients. We've met most of those standards fairly well over the last couple of years. There is one outstanding I've noted in terms of peer support workers that we still have to progress at some point in time, although some discussions around drug and alcohol services in that context. I think we've managed to maintain our performance at over 70% over the last year, which in the context of somewhat reduced resource in terms of recent funding streams, I think is reflective of a lot of hard work and dedication from our workforce. We've got strong links with we've got strong professional governance links established. We've really good support from our executive lead, June, and the communication from Chief Executive Team, therefore, is really, really helpful to us to contextualise our work. We have really good support from Health Intelligence as well, which means that we've now got, I think, really good data that supports our work and allows us to be fairly confident that our capacities is used as effectively as possible across the system, so that we've got good demand capacity activity and queue analysis and job planning for each and every clinician that demonstrates that we've got good use of the resource that we have. We've got a bunch of work streams I've listed there, really trying to look at what we can do within the current context of continuing our consideration of a whole system approach to delivering psychological services, considering innovative ways of working, trying to engage with as many digital kind of opportunities as there are available to us. I'm happy to talk to any of those items in more detail. But I just thought to highlight as well some of the other issues that are around for us that are sort of larger scale. One of the difficulties we have working cross system is the way that we're set up with the delegated services across the HCPCs, and I just wanted to say that really we've wanted to engage with some further work with chief officers to look at see if there are ways to progress a more streamlined service, ultimately to have a more agile service to deliver across NHS Grampian is one thing I think that could substantially improve the performance. And also in our high volume services, which is really CAMS and adult mental health, I think we still really are resource short, recognising the current climate. I think we are hopeful that at least with the reduced working week bid, which has been supported, we might be able to do some innovative work around peripatetic posts that we can use across the system that would fit with a cross-system modelling approach to address some of the challenges we have. So I think all in all, we're doing fairly well collectively, given the context we have, and we've added some data in there for your information about our relative resource compared to other boards as well, that I think put into context the performance that we have in NHS Grampian currently. So I'll probably pause there and open up for questions.
No, thank you very much, Sean. That's really helpful. Thank you. I think it's clear from the report you've given and the comments you've made there as well about the improvements that the service has made. And so, thanks to all the team involved in that as well for all that work. That comes out very clearly from the report. Also, I know talking to you as well and hearing from you as well, the innovation that you've been embracing as well, and the step forward with that has been really positive as well. That's a bit of my visibility work coming out as well, visit work coming out as well, and seeing the innovation, which is really important. So thank you for all that work done. And I think you've also, you've left us here with an issue that I think it'd be important to hear board members' views on as well, because it seems clear that you're getting as far as you can with what you've got, and that service reorganisation and working with health and social care partnerships seems to be a key stage we're at now to move forward. So it'd be interesting to hear comments from colleagues on that in particular as well. Thank you. Sandy, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Sean, and thanks for a very detailed report. I mean, I note the comments that these services are delivered via delegated services to the IJB. So there are multiple challenges. I do get that. I suppose it's, as the report does state, those challenges are most acutely felt by the public who are having to wait sometimes a long time for services. I was at an event fairly recently in Murray in relation to clinical psychology, and there was a lot of quite exciting initiatives discussed. But speaking to staff, I was hearing about some extremely long waiting lists for people to get help. So I mean, I think just to put that in context for a start. So I've got two questions really. I mean, firstly, it's stated that no one is waiting beyond 52 weeks, and that at the time of writing that report, 133 patients were waiting above 36 weeks compared to 200 in December. There is reference to this progress now having plateaued. So the first question is, I'm just seeking some sort of sense as to what the current position is in relation to weights. And I suppose secondly, I note the suggestions have been put to chief officers of IJBs and the relevant governance board in terms of improving matters. I'm not being critical of anyone in particular, but here in Grampian, we don't appear to have a great record when it comes to NHS Grampian and the 3 IJBs working effectively together and quickly to resolve issues regarding complex clinical pathways and service provision. So I suppose, is there a timeline in any of this? Because I have actually been hearing about service redesign and service remodeling for many, many years now. So I'm just wondering, I think you're doing as much as you can within the resources you have, and there's lots of steps that you're taking. But in terms of providing assurance that mitigations are in place to actually reduce or to improve access to the public, this report doesn't do it for me, because it feels as if there's an awful lot to do in terms of the governance board and IJBs. And I'm just wondering if you have any kind of sense of when some resolution will come out from that.
I think I'll bring Sean in a minute. I noticed that Fiona's got a hand up as well, and I think this is the stage which Sean's at, I think, isn't a moment about that reorganisation, doing things differently. But Sean, do you want to come in?
I couldn't say I've got timescales in that. We've presented papers to the chief officers, and also with other professional lead colleagues in Grampian. We've had discussions with Phil as well, actually, in terms of Phil Tideman here, about how working across the service, aligning services more under professional leads might provide us with a lot of efficiencies across services. So the work's ongoing, but it's very much, this is the stage we're at. I suppose for me, it's been a process of taking the service to the point we're at with the analysis I have. I think we are probably at the point of using our resource pretty much as well as we can. But I think if there are opportunities for discussions to align services more under one system, I think that will provide us with other opportunities to make further improvements. And I suppose just to say that many other boards, most boards in Scotland are aligned in that way. So it's not, we're actually an outlier in that sense from a psychological therapy service. So, it's not something that hasn't been done before. So there are definite opportunities there.
Yeah, thank you. I'll bring Fiona in as well. Sean to comment as well. Fiona.
Yeah, thank you. And so we've certainly met with Sean, and Sean put a paper to us, and we did explain we're doing this through our mental health budget, and we just want to make sure that we're making the right decisions rather than change something without making sure. So we're already testing it in a different part of the system, and if that's successful, then we can absolutely continue the conversations. And I guess it is. So I think we do try really hard to work closely together to make that pathway smooth. And I know certainly the chief officers have been having ongoing conversations to make sure that decisions that we make in different bits of the Health and Social Care Partnership aren't completely different. So we're trying to make sure that we have across Grampian, supporting all the Grampian population, that they get a similar service. So we are absolutely doing that and working collaboratively as chief officers to make sure that that happens. And as I say, we'll happily continue to have conversations with Sean, but we need to get this understanding from the mental health budget first to see how that's gone before we go forward. Thanks.
Okay, Sandy, happy with that progress?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna go on about it. Just I suppose for years now, and I mean quite a number of years, at things like audit and performance risk committee at local IJB level, in terms of mental health and psychology services, I have been hearing much the same thing, Fiona. So I just suppose, in terms of the public, is there any kind of outcome likely anytime soon? Is what I was looking for. But I hear what you're saying, that you're looking at it, but the performance information we are receiving as non-execs at various forums has been consistently worrying for quite some time. And I think Sean and his colleagues probably need a bit more support in terms of trying to move this along.
Yeah, I think that's important points there as well. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. I'll turn to John, please.
Yeah, thank you. If I can, Sean, thanks for the report. Just a couple of factual things. How long have we been in this enhanced support? Is this newish, or has this been ongoing for a while?
Sean?
Just get my button there. Yeah, we've been in the enhanced measures for quite a considerable length of time now, a few years, 3 years, I think. And actually, nearly all boards are. So it's not, again, we're not an outlier in that sense. There are 1 or 2 boards that are meeting the standard, which I think is a mixture of, in relation to their relative resource and also their choices and what they're delivering upon, which is another kind of complex factor that we need to be
okay.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Okay, thanks. So when you're saying other boards, we're an outlier in our organisation, but we're not an outlier in relation to performance. So there's not necessarily a direct correlation between the two. Okay, the other just factual question is the distribution of enhanced mental health outcomes framework funding across health and social care partnerships. Where that's mentioned, is that in Grampian that you're talking about, or is that a Scottish issue for health and social care partnerships?
So I was referring in this context to how it's delegated in Grampian. So the Enhanced Mental Health Outcomes Framework funding streams have a range of deliverables attached to them, including many that are around psychological therapies delivery, and they're delegated to the health and social care partnerships for distribution as appropriate. Now, some of that has meant that I think that there are multiple competing demands for those funding streams, and over the last year and a half, I think it's demonstrable we've lost some resource around psychological therapies delivery. That's not a criticism, it's just the reality of what's happened when you have these resources delegated in that way, I think. They are, however, baseline moving forward, so whatever we have in post now should be baseline moving forward, so there'll be less up for these kind of potential resource kind of changes moving forward. So I think that should help.
Thank you.
Okay,
John?
Thanks. So that's just to understand the report a bit better. And then I suppose just a comment, like as you asked for, Alison, just on what you're saying is a potential kind of structural centralization of it. I think the report really usefully talks about the peer support workers, the low staffing compared to other boards, and then that distribution of that framework funding. So I think what I'd be looking for is what can be done about if those are the core things under the current arrangements, as well as anything that might be more centralized before agreeing anything. So where does the decision on that come? Is it an IJB decision, or is it one of our committees, or what?
IJB, Fiona, do you want to comment from the IJB point of view?
Sorry, can you just remind me?
It's that central coming on together under one banner. It'd have to go through the IJB governance, wouldn't it, for that?
Yeah, it would, because it's all to do with our delegation, John. So we have to be, and I think that's why we want to make sure we do the right decision before we progress, because we will need to come to IJBs and potentially change integration schemes and stuff. So we need to be really thoughtful how we do this. Sorry, thanks.
Okay, thank you. It's just to clarify the touch point for that, so that's helpful. But thanks for the report. It's useful to see the the position on this, and certainly support Sandy's position that we need to see the continued improvement. So thank you.
Thank you. Alex, do you want to come in on that SCIMS delegation as well, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think Fiona's correct in what she said. I mean, the three, I mean, we've delegated these services to the IGBs, so the IGBs would need to make a decision on that, as would NHS Grampian and possibly even the councils, because the integration scheme is obviously a joint agreement between the two bodies. So you know, the governance around this is complicated if we do decide to move services in and out.
And that's why the paper's written as it is, with views in the middle rather than a recommendation. Thank you. Dennis, please.
Thanks very much. Sandy really asked my sort of substantive question, really. And I suppose, you know, we're hearing about resource, I suppose, deficiencies in some respects, and how innovative you have been. And it does really beg the question about, you know, how do we then support going forward to ensure that we're doing the best that we can for the people that require our service. And it does seem that there is a recruitment issue here that needs to be addressed, and again, modelling in terms of looking at what other boards do. I wonder if perhaps it's maybe a question for Rachel, and that is to flag up the specific challenges that we see in CAMS, and is there any particular area within CAMS that you feel that we're not addressing in the best way that we can? And are we using our digital, because a lot of this is to do with our younger, I suppose, patients. Are we using digital in the best way that we can? And is that a methodology that you support? And I suppose the other thing is the transition from our children's service to our adult service in terms of meeting that particular need. Is there still a gap? Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Bring Rachel in, please, and welcome to the board as well, Rachel. Thank you.
Thank you, and lovely to see you again, Dennis.
Yep.
Yeah, you asked a few different bits there. So I actually feel we're very, very well supported in terms of the board. I think for CAMS, we've had a 9.5 percentage increase in referrals from 2022 to 2025. And at the same time, we've had a reduction in staff, 13.5 posts reduced, but that has been because of the uncertainty of the enhanced mental health outcome framework within CAMS that's held, I guess, hosted within City. And I feel really supported by my management colleagues, by Fiona, to actually just rethink about how can we reclaim some of those posts. And it's been really helpful now, and maybe to answer Sandy's point, we've lost capacity over the past couple of years, which obviously has increased weights a wee bit, but there's hope for me in terms of actually reclaiming some of those posts with the baseline of the EMHOF funding, bearing in mind the financial context. I even have Alex sitting on my shoulder. So that's positive. In terms of digital stuff, we've been fighting quite a bit about the ability to have text reminders, which seems a really simple thing. That has recently been agreed, and that'll be super helpful for us because we've had quite a bit of lost capacity in terms of DNAing. And I think there's a number of different digital initiatives at different levels that actually we're quite keen to really think about, and think about how we can get young people the best support so they're not sitting waiting unnecessarily. What was your last bit, Dennis? You asked.
Basically that transition from our CAMS into maybe adult services in terms of that continued support.
Yeah, again, I think that's something that we're actively working on, and we've there was actually a mental welfare commission thing we had to respond to, and actually that's been useful in terms of I guess energizing us to really think, but not just think generally, because the Scottish Government have already got a framework in place for that. Think specifically for different populations. So I know there's specific work going on in terms of our learning disability population. There's some different work going on in terms of our eating disorder population. So it does feel that that's shifting, but I think there is work to be done I won't say that it's in an amazing place.
Okay, thank you for that, Rachel. And again, I suppose it goes back to Sandy's point earlier that we're still seeing elements of work that is ongoing and needing to be addressed, as opposed to actually frameworks that are in place. And I think that obviously gives me that degree of concern, and especially in that terms of that support from our young people into adult services. And you highlighted a couple of, I think, areas there, and I should probably declare an interest there in terms of the work that I've previously done with the eating disorders, and it does give me some concern that we don't have the appropriate frameworks there. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dennis, for that. Hussein, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and can I just thank for the paper to both of you, but also thanks to Rachel for what she just set out in response to Dennis's question. I think that was extremely helpful, and I do want to focus on that in between just very quickly, because it's in our sphere of responsibility for those patients who are entering our system and those patients who are waiting, and that performance is as it is due to the capacity that we have. I'm just wondering, hand in hand with that, do we have the capacity? Do we have initiatives in place to signpost to while people are waiting to enter our system from the point of referral, to get any support that they may require whilst they're waiting, to try and mitigate wherever possible, whether that's from other partner organizations, etc., whatever it's from, to avoid any quote unnecessary quote degradation before they then enter our system. Do we have the capacity and ability to do that? And is that something that we do as a matter of course, to say to people, you're waiting to come in, but in the meantime, ...
Yeah, thank you, Hussein. Rachel, do you want to respond, please?
Yeah, so the way we have set it up is we try and see children and young people as soon as we can, so that actually we definitely see everyone within 18 weeks. At the moment, it's actually, I think we're sitting at about 12 weeks just now, slight difference. We share resource across our health and social care partnerships, so it's about 12 weeks. And at that point, we would meet children and young people. If children and young people don't meet CAMHS referral criteria, they should get a personalised letter explaining, so a referral comes in and they'll get a letter explaining why they don't meet our criteria, but with alternative options. And then we see children and young people, and at that point they should be given tailored options about what you can do in the meantime. I know also yesterday the Scottish Government made an announcement around the new kind of initiatives in the NHS 24, which are going to open up to children and young people. So that's really, really positive. And Sean and I are both in correspondence with the psychology lead for NHS 24 in relation to that. Yeah, in terms of specific capacity for more early intervention stuff, we've also got an early intervention team, but like everything, I guess, we have to think where we put our resource.
Thank you very much. That's Rachel. Thank you. And thank you for the question, Hussein. Stephen, please.
Yeah, as others have said, thank you for the paper, which I found was an interesting read, and good news in terms of the improvements that have been made. So, Sean and Rachel, please, pass on the board's thanks and acknowledgement to your teams for that. I guess in terms of the service reorganisation, I'm sort of curious about what the wider implications might be for psychological therapies within mental health more widely. I think others have already, with earlier questions that other non-execs have asked, I think, the ability to change may well be quite complex, because there are going to be at least 3 other public body organisations that are going to have, more than a little bit of interest and need to go through their processes. And as I think a colleague said, it may also involve the councils. But if we're going to do that, your psychological therapies interaction and place within wider mental health, I suppose, how's that going to work? Because certainly it's if I and apologies if I'm mistaken in this, but the taking pulling things together under under a single clinical director. That's not the only model, even within NHS Grampian. I think allied health professions are probably an example of other services where operationally they're managed one way, professionally there are accountabilities and good governance links. So I just wonder about the wider impact and the wider risks within the organisations, plural. So I'd welcome Sean's thoughts on that, or any others as well. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, briefly. I mean, it's a little bit difficult to answer that, I suppose, Stephen. But I guess what I would say is, as I observe it, there is the psychological needs of one part of the population in Grampian are exactly the same as another part of Grampian, but we're not able, in the way that we're set up, to provide an equitable, responsive service as things stand. And so, for me, the opportunity is to be equitable first and foremost, which I think is the first thing in my mind, and secondly, to be more responsive. So things like, in relatively small services, someone can leave post or be off sick, and that can have a massive impact on weights in one part of the service. And it's difficult for us to respond to that because of the way things are delegated. Now, I see it that if we had the opportunity to have a bit more authority to respond to those demands, we'd be able to do things that would mitigate weights increasing and the sort of problems that arise for that. For patients primarily, that's my key concern, that as people get longer in waiting lists, the sort of impact of a mental health difficulty becomes greater, and things like relationship losses, job losses, that sort of stuff begins to become contextually much more difficult to treat, if you like. Now, as far as I can see, if we were able to work more collectively as one system, we could do that we could impact on those kind of problems more directly. So it's hard for me to see, I think, what you're questioning, which is the other side of that coin, which is the impacts negatively, because currently what I'm observing is that the way that we're set up doesn't respond as well as we could do to the patients of NHS Grampian.
Okay, Stephen, is that?
It's an answer. I think if I heard what Fiona said earlier, correctly, I think this is one stage on a journey, and it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure a number of us, particularly non-execs of NHS Grampian, a number of us are also members of the IJBs. So I would anticipate that a number of us will end up being involved in future conversations. But thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think it's been an interesting discussion, and I hope it's been helpful to you as well, Sean. I think, because obviously we recognise the importance of your work and all the improvements being done by the group, the staff involved, and I'm really grateful for them for all the efforts in that. And obviously there's been comments about needing the support for the ongoing work and things that can be done maybe now, in addition to the immense work that's been done to improve already, and recognising from Fiona's point of view as well, that recognising that the space the IJBs are in currently, the research work they're doing at the moment, the things they're considering, and that there will no doubt be an appropriate time, maybe not as soon as maybe envisaged originally, but an appropriate time at which these things can be taken into that space and worked through with all the partners involved that need to be through the scheme of delegation. So a very complex piece of work to do to change anything, but obviously the process that Fiona spoke through, I think, is really important within that as well. So we will, I think, have to wait and see how that evolves to the IJBs and chief officers first of all. Okay, so we've got the recommendations and no other indications. The recommendations are assurance to review and scrutinise the information provided in the paper, confirm it provides assurance that necessary mitigations are in place, to ensure timely access to psychological therapies, and to endorse noting the improvement in the referred to treatment time, and note the robust governance structures in place to manage improvements. I think we've all emphasised the improvements that we recognise very clearly from this work and what's been said today. So again, thank for that. And can we agree the recommendations, please? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for that, and I look forward to hearing any developments from Fiona and the team as well as that moves forward. Thank you. All right, thanks very much, Sean and Rachel. Thank you. Okay, then moving on now then to item 11, which is the maternity and neonatal services in Grampian governance. Geraldine, you're leading off on this, and then we're welcoming as well other colleagues to speak to us as well. But Geraldine, I'll pass to you first, please.
Yes, thank you. So this report provides an update on the governance arrangements for maternity services and our neonatal services. I'm going to pass over to our Director of Midwifery, Katie Colville, who will go through the report. Just prior to that, may be helpful for board members' awareness that there was a report taken to the Clinical Governance Committee last week where KPIs for maternity services were agreed, and those will be reported every 6 months via committee. But I'll pass over to Katie, who will highlight the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geraldine, and welcome to committee, Katie. Not that I can see you, but you're here somewhere. Thank you, Katie.
I am. Thank you, Chair. So I'm not going to say too much about the paper. The paper is there within your packs, and I'm pleased to introduce this. As Geraldine says, it aims to provide the board with assurance on the governance, oversight, and improvement activity underway within our maternity and neonatal services. As you'll note within the paper, Health and Care Improvement Scotland are ongoing their inspection programme of acute maternity services, and we now have 5 published reports. We still await our inspection, and you'll see that the local themes outlined within this paper closely align with emerging themes from a national perspective. I think it's important to note the strengths within our services that's noted within in the paper, as well as the areas that require that ongoing sustained organisational focus. So myself and colleagues are very happy to take any questions that the board may have.
Thank you very much, Katie. It's good to have you here, and it was good to have know that the response from the Clinical Governance Committee to the KPIs as well, that was agreed this week as well. That's good to have. And obviously, as we're looking at this, it's those issues around safety, effectiveness and staffing are really crucial for us to look at today as well. So can I have any comments from any board member, any questions from any colleagues, please? Bert, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Katie, for the paper and for your comments. A very useful paper, I think, and you'll be aware that I've paid a couple of visits to your area of work over the past couple of years, I think most recently in December. A recurring theme on both visits, and you refer to this in your paper, is that the pressures that staff are facing from the increased scrutiny that comes about from the numerous high-profile investigations and reviews into maternity and neonatal services across the country. It was clear to me that this is something that concerns staff significantly. They're trying to do their best. So just 2 or 3 things that I wonder if you can just tell us about. One is in relation to these high-profile investigations and reviews, are you taking the opportunity to learn from the findings and the outcomes from these? Are you able to implement these where you feel it is appropriate and indeed necessary to do so? And I guess what's also of great importance is how you're being able to support the staff through the pressures that they're feeling, not only in relation to this increased scrutiny, but in relation to the pressures on the system as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bert. That's very helpful. Thank you. Katie, please. Just come in.
Yeah, so each new report that comes out, we are cross-matching ourselves and our services. So we're benchmarking ourselves against any new report and seeing what learning and where are we locally versus what that learning come out. So we are doing that systematically as each new report comes out. And so that piece of work is underway. I think in terms of the success in implementing appropriately, I think we have. I think there's still work to do, and I think we've outlined that in terms of kind of the triage work and the induction of labour work within the paper. We recognise the themes that are coming out of national reports, and we recognise them locally. And whilst we've got plans in place, we continue to work very much on them. I think there is restrictions, it's very similar to the paper that came similarly. We have absolutely redesigned as much as we can within our service, and so we're now looking at our workforce models and what more can we do, and we're in those conversations with our finance colleagues and other colleagues organisationally around about how can we make improvements to our workforce and our staffing models to help facilitate us to maximise our improvements. And I would say in terms of staff, you're really right, staff all through maternity and neonatal services are very much feeling the scrutiny, and it is a really, really challenging period of time. So we're trying our hardest at all levels to support our teams. We've set up improved visibility, improved walk-arounds, so there's members of leadership teams that are walking around the areas every 2 weeks. We're signposting staff to support services. We're also trying to help improve that safety and that quality, that kind of psychological safety through any review processes. But it is a work in progress, I'm not going to lie, and I think there is more that we can do to continue to support staff. And I think as we move through the National Neonatal and Maternity Task Force, I think that scrutiny, particularly also when the HIS inspection comes locally, that'll need to ramp up, and we'll need to do further support for our teams around about that. I hope I've answered all of your questions, but I'm happy to come.
Bert, are you happy with that?
Yes, I am, and just thank you very much to you and your colleagues for all the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, Katie, the way you've written the report is really, just to come in on the back of your comments you made there, the report, the way it's written with the awareness of the issues and the steps that you're taking to improve, I think it's really, really good to be able to see that from our assurance point of view as well. The way that you've structured the report is very helpful. Thank you. Dennis.
Just add my comments in terms of I do like the way the report has been set out. Katie, yeah, it was actually Tuesday. We spoke in terms of clinical governance, and you kindly reminded me that that paper was coming to the board actually today. I wonder if you could expand on. We talk about the complexities that are facing our midwifery staff now, and although we have a lower birth rate in terms of the population, we are seeing much more complex pregnancies coming forward. And you highlighted this as maybe a disproportionate one in terms of our Black, Asian and other minority groups. And I'm wondering if you just could flag up maybe just in a little more detail the work that's ongoing to support those particular areas where maybe there's an equality question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Katie, do you want to come in?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are working on our national racialised inequality framework that came out from a maternity services perspective. So we're working through that at the moment. But what we have also done locally is we're currently in partnership with public health colleagues undertaking a health needs assessment. So that health needs assessment has two focuses. So it's looking at the outcomes and experiences of ethnic minority women, but it's also looking at those for women who have higher levels of vulnerability within our community. So that's taken into account their lived experiences of our local services. So that's a really, really important piece of work that's currently ongoing. That's due to complete at the end of March, and that will help us understand a lot more around about our local context. So not just that quantitative outcomes, but those experiences of these individuals. There's a piece of work that we're also doing in terms of understanding and improving the quality and access to our ethnicity data. So we've identified there's some areas where that quality can be improved. So that work is ongoing in tandem with that to ensure that we are got those reliable measures, so we can see that the improvements that we will prioritise once these health needs assessments have been completed are actually making the difference that we hope that they will make. And I'm happy to give further detail on those health needs assessments once they've been completed.
No, thank you for that, Katie. And I wonder, one of the things it doesn't actually state in the report is why. I suppose in terms of we have much more complex pregnancies now than we had before. And I think we're left just to assume that it might be that are women having babies later in life, or are I really, that it wasn't clear as to why we're having that more complex issues. And before you answer that question, Chair, if I may, you also raised an issue in terms of resourcing, in terms of our staffing levels, and you mentioned you've got ongoing conversations with Alex and his team. Is it also a question of ensuring that we've got the appropriate skill set and providing additional training for some of our nursing colleagues as well? You mentioned, I think at one point, some of our midwives don't have the appropriate theatre experience. And is that something that we're working on to ensure that we try and give that widest range of experience and skill set that we can with our existing workforce if we're continuing to have recruitment issues? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Perhaps the why bit that Dennis said at first can come back in information later, and if you focus now on the workforce, maybe Katie as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so I can come back to you about the why. There's lots of reasons for that. But in terms of the appropriate skill set, yeah, so there's lots of work ongoing ensuring that our staff have got the right training. And I think, there's definitely work. So there's work that we need to do in terms of that staff access to the training and that release of staff, particularly when there's that high pressure and there's that high flow going through the department. So ensuring staff have got the right training. I think in terms of the recovery element, Caroline, I think is here. She may want to come in a little bit more. I think what that is around about our theatre workforce and having the right skills with the right people in the right place. So our midwives are very, very highly trained, but they're trained to deliver midwifery care, and our theatre teams and our nursing colleagues to deliver the theatre care. So I think that point is very much to highlight that if we can get our workforce across our midwifery and nursing right for our teams, then that will really help ensure that the right people with the right skills are in the right place. And that's kind of the comment in relation to that. I'm not sure if Caroline or others may wish to come in on that.
Yeah, Caroline, you're welcome to make a comment. Caroline?
Thank you. Yeah, so I think the main thing to highlight is that we're not expecting midwifery staff to undertake theatre recovery competencies. They are providing, so we expect that should be theatre staff. However, we don't have staffing for a 24/7 recovery area for obstetrics. At the moment, what's happening is our recovery area is a hybrid area of HDU level women and recovery post theatre. So it's a mixed model that's kind of we're at the mercy of the building. That's the way it was designed originally. This will be completely delineated when we're into the Baird, so we will have that completely separate. So at the moment we've got a hybrid option, but we also do have some workforce challenges that we need to work through, that Katie and I are working through the common staff and methodology alongside finance colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis is nodding there. Thank you. Just a fun question for me, because most of mine have been answered here already, Katie, but in the introduction to the report, you talk about care being delivered across community, acute and specialist. And the report we have then obviously talks, it's mainly the hospital it talks about. We've talked a lot about whole system work in the course of this meeting. What links do you have to the maternity services being delivered in that wider sphere of the community, as how it was worded in the paper? Thank you.
So really all of this spans all of it in terms of maternity services. So maternity services in Grampian covers that community, that acute. We're very fortunate in Grampian. We have our 2 freestanding maternity units, which are hubs for our community. So we deliver quite a lot of our services out of them. So whether that's scanning services, our high risk obstetric care occur in those hubs, so that we're delivering that maternity care closer to home. So we're trying to reduce that need for women to travel during their pregnancy, and we actually provide a lot of this care. For example, the starting points of induction of labour can take place out in the community before they come in for their second stage of induction of labour. And for triage services, we are looking at that pan-Grampian, our whole service. So I appreciate it wasn't maybe explicit within the paper, but it's just to reassure
Yeah.
that whole picture is the whole picture of maternity and that community impact as well.
Brilliant. That assurance is really important. So thank you very much for that, Katie, for saying that as well. Thank you. Okay, I can't see any other questions or comments here on this paper. So thank you very much, Caroline, Katie and June as well for presenting us. Geraldine for presenting here. We're asked in the recommendations, assurance, review and scrutinise the information provided in the paper and confirm that it provides assurance that improvements are being made and appropriate evidence of these has been provided to the board's satisfaction. And then future reporting to request that another report on this subject is brought back to the board at the end of 2026. My only comment on that is that this week, for obvious reasons around the KPIs, we've had the clinical governance and the board papers the same week. When we talk about later in 2026, I'd hope that they were different months. The papers were coming back to at the end of the month, so we had that oversight in 2 months rather than in the same week. But with that caveat on the recommendation saying brought back to the board at the end of 2026, can we agree those two recommendations, please? Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we turn then to item 12, and thank you, Caroline and Katie again. Can we turn to item 12, the improvement plan? Phil, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And a few points just by way of introduction, then I'll happy to take questions. So this report builds on the previous presentation that came to the board in December, setting out how NHS Grampian was taking ownership and responsibility for the external review that was commissioned and then published by Scottish Government in October of 2025. Within the report, members will see we've enacted the board-approved governance framework, aligning all 87 of the recommendations to each of the programme boards overseeing value and sustainability, planning, care and scheduled care, as well as our culture programme board. I think it's fair to say the transition is well underway and timescales are detailed in terms of how that handover to the programme boards is occurring. I do think it is important to acknowledge the breadth of work and the amount of time, focus and capacity it will take for the organisation to deliver such a wide-reaching plan. We are engaging with the programme boards to understand what they think their resource needs will be, and we will look to redirect internal resources to support that programme of work. We expect to conclude that by mid-March. With extensive engagement across a lot of teams, we have now mapped for each of the 87 recommendations key milestones in terms of delivery. The evidence will need to collate to assess whether they can be closed, and then a very clear timetable for closing all 87 of those recommendations. We are asking the board to approve that timetable today so that we can then help to account for that. I think finally to say, in line with our agreed governance structure, there are 3 recommendations that are before the board today for agreement to close, and these have been reviewed and endorsed by the Performance Assurance Finance and Infrastructure Committee before coming here. So I'll leave it there and then happy to take questions, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Phil, and really acknowledge the amount of work that lies behind this paper and the different people involved in it as well. So really appreciate that. Thank you. And the developing governance framework as well is absolutely crucial behind all this as well. Thank you. Any questions or comments, please? Laura.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, Phil. Just a couple of comments from myself. Firstly, just to recognise this has been a huge piece of work that has absolutely been owned by the executive team. Just looping back to my earlier comments in the meeting, it is a requirement in terms of de-escalation to have an improvement plan. So this is a really important piece of work, not just to get to this stage, but to make sure we keep momentum and focus and absolutely stay on top of this. And we now have the governance in place to absolutely do this. We had a really helpful discussion as a chief executive team, and one of the outputs of that discussion was really looking at some project support around this, because it's a massive piece of work, and to do it justice and make sure we do keep the focus that is needed, we need to give that some thought. So just to let board members know that is work underway. And then finally, just to say I'd really welcome this being in the public part of the meeting. Really important for openness and transparency, not just as a board, but with our patients and local community and wider partners as well. And of course, this is a quarterly update that comes through to the Assurance Board as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Laura. It's very helpful. Thank you. And John, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the report. And it's good to see getting to this stage of trying to integrate the work. Just that point on capacity and reviewing that, and then the next report to us at the end of the year. It's just, should there be any issues around capacity, would that be brought back earlier, or is there a committee it would go to, just for some assurance that the capacity is found, and if it's not, where it would come to? Thank you.
I've got both Laura and Phil wanting to answer that. Laura first.
I'll come in first. So thanks, Chair. There's a bigger piece of work going on at the moment linked to our 26-27 priorities, looking at realigning our project support and programme support in the organisation. So I've asked Phil to take the lead on that piece of work, and there's a deadline attached to that for coming back to CET. And of course, the improvement plan is a central part of that. So we will come back as part of the 26-27 priorities with the outputs of that wider work. But if there are any issues, of course, we'll escalate that in the right way. Thanks, John.
Hey, Phil, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think just in terms of the early escalation, so while it comes here quarterly for updates, it will be reported regularly to the Chief Executive team. And I will say that the governance structure we have implemented for this programme very much mirrors what we've done for the Value and Sustainability programme, which includes regular meetings with those leads. So I'm very assured that through that process, we'll be able to escalate to CET and then identify resource requirements if they need to be different.
Okay, John?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I can't see any other comments from this, and obviously the three actions, the three recommendations proposed for closure have been through PAPIC this week as well, or recently anyway. No other comments. We'll turn to the recommendations. To note the work to progress the improvement plan to date, to note the summary of detailed milestones and the evidence base and expected closure dates, and to confirm the recommendation of the performance of PAPIC committee to close the three recommendations listed in section 2.4. Can we agree the recommendations, please? Thank you very much for that. Thank you. And now we turn to item 13, the bed and anchor update. Alan, please, you're taking the lead on this one. Alan Wilson, please.
Yeah, thank you, Alison. And I'll take it that the paper's been read. I have Colin and Nick on the call with me. So what I'll do is I'll ask Colin to take us through some of the key parts of the paper he was wanting to take us through. Then we'll open it up for any questions. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alan. Colin, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. The paper that's in front of you, I'll add a wee bit of contextual information to that just to give an update where we are in relation to the two buildings. So firstly, in relation to the anchor, the remedial construction is now complete, and we've now entered into a commissioning phase, a technical commissioning phase for the building. And indeed, we have NHS Scotland Assure on site auditing that technical commissioning process that's undergoing today. So we're closing out in terms of the construction CASAR. There's 3 outstanding items, and the CASAR submission is now complete and with NHS Scotland Assure. In relation to the Baird, all instructions for remedial works have been issued. The contractor is actively working on those in terms of evolving the design. There has been some design information already submitted by the contractor, and indeed there's been some stakeholder input into the design towards signing that off. That will continue through to May, and then construction in relation to the remedial works for the Baird will thereafter continue. In the paper, I've highlighted some of the challenges. I think members will be aware over the history of this project that it's emerged through COVID, the war in Ukraine, and the impact that that's had on both the construction industry and material costs. It's also been through the main bulk of the Scottish Hospitals inquiry, and it has indeed faced its own scrutiny around some of the safety issues on the project. So in terms of the additional governance that's been brought into the project, we've taken some of that recent learning, and as I've reported previously, we've bolstered the resources in the project. There is a shadow design team supporting the project, and they've undertaken a holistic design review of the project, which has brought to attention some areas where specific focus needs to be brought with both the contractor and NHS Grampian. We've introduced multi-stakeholder safety groups as a piece of governance, and that's enabled a broad range of expertise to be involved in decision making, including infection and prevention control colleagues, authorising engineers, technical advisors, and other NHS Grampian stakeholders. We've introduced enhanced commissioning processes upon which the anchor is going through just now. And we've also introduced subgroups to the project board where there's other areas which aren't covered by safety groups, which we need specialist input. So that additional resource has brought with it the coverage of addressing some of the aspects which have been in question, and it has unfortunately brought with it a series of changes, as everyone's aware of, to the buildings. In the paper, it outlines the revised budget for the project. So as stated in the paper, the revised forecast costs for the project has now increased to £438.6 million against the previously approved budget of 231.3, which was back in May 2023. I can, as I've stated already, I can confirm that the majority of that arises from the challenges that I've already set out here in terms of the delay and the redesign. But that, as I've stated in the paper, has been fully supported by the Scottish Government in terms of they are willing to support the project through to completion on the basis of that forecast. I've also in the paper identified the revised programme dates and what we're looking at just now based on the forecasted scope of work that's intended through to completion on the anchor is that we'd look to take occupation of the anchor late July 2026 and the Baird Family Hospital in July 2027. Now, I would stress that these dates are currently under review and will continue to be under review on a weekly basis. They're conditional upon a number of matters, and the enhanced commissioning that I've prescribed here already is important, as we've seen within other hospitals that have not gone, have adopted different commissioning processes. There's been identification of issues post-occupation, and that's an area that we want to avoid. So the enhanced commissioning approach that we're taking just now is on a week-by-week review, so that could impact on potential dates over the course of the weeks if there's anything identified during that process. And notwithstanding that, I think of extreme importance is to note that the Key Stage Assurance Review being undertaken by NHS Scotland Assure, we can't put specific dates on when that will be fully discharged, but we will work hand in hand with NHS Scotland Assure to try and manage that as best as possible. But those are the two contingent issues just now that could potentially affect those dates. But as we speak, based on the current forecast, the dates are July 26 for the anchor and July 27, sorry, for the Baird Family Hospital. I've also put into the paper some of the additional matters such as the communication strategy, and there has been a strong communication strategy in updating all of our partners and all of our staff around these dates and the matters that we are addressing as we go through this project. So with that, I will pass over to Nick if he has any comments in advance of opening up to questions.
Thank you very much, Colin. Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to add too much here because Colin's given such comprehensive support to the paper, so very happy to just support any additional questions at this point.
Yeah, and thank you, Nick. Thank you, Colin, and thank you, Alan, as well. I think it's really crucial the points you make about the advanced commissioning. That is something that we really need to emphasise, and the KSAR process being carried through as well. I think that those 2 points that you emphasised there, Colin, and you spoke are both really important to us as a board to have those go through as they need to do before these hospitals are open. So thank you for that. Ian, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you for both the report and the introduction, which were very helpful. And note obviously all your qualifications in relation to the bring into operation dates, and I quite understand those qualifications. What, this may be an unfair question, but I'll ask it anyway. What level of confidence do you have in the bring into operation dates?
I think that's referred to in what's been said about having to go through these processes, doesn't it, Ian? And they are.
Well, sorry, Alison.
Yes, but
if I could answer that first of all, Ian, I think the issues that we have observed through the Scottish Hospital Inquiry have been predominantly concerns around the safety of water and ventilation systems in both buildings, and the water commissioning process relies on the results of testing of the water systems. And unfortunately, we can't predict that until we load the building with water and allow that to take its natural course of commissioning. We can only be as confident as we are that the contractor has constructed it properly and adequately, and B, that the water supply that Scottish Water provides to the site is equally as good. And if that is the case, then we can feel quite confident about the dates. But if there is any abnormals, then that's likely to affect that. Notwithstanding that, we also have to be understanding that NHS Scotland Assure are a body who have a limited resource, and as you'll be aware, there are other major healthcare projects which have been assigned this year and could potentially conflict in terms of the resource availability to support the KSARs on both of these buildings. But we are, as I've said, meeting on a weekly basis with NHS Scotland Assure, providing them with programme updates in order to avoid any clash there. So I can't say we can be absolutely confident, but as I stand here, we can be as confident as we are.
Thank you. I would be surprised if you had said you were absolutely confident. That wasn't what I was expecting. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Nick had put his hand up as well for that one as well, Ian. Nick, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, thank you very much. Ian, thank you, of course. Great question. The bit that I'm definitely confident in is the project team's application to getting us through what are a series of pretty complex processes. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of that, Ian, so that sort of pre-go live thing, Colin mentioned two of the sort of critical hazards that all healthcare environments have, water and ventilation. We have a duty, having done all of that enhanced due diligence, to reassess all of the risks associated with those hazards, ensure that we've done all the mitigation to bring those down to be as low as reasonably practical, and then to have internal accountable executive sign-off. And that's then mirrored in the NHS Assure process. They will be going through that to potentially give us a supported statement. So I think, the application is absolutely there, but obviously those are two quite complex steps that have lots of moving parts in them. So of course, they can throw up things that sort of delay you at the last minute, but confident that the team really have a strong handle on how we're taking it forward.
Right, thank you for that, Nick, and thumbs up from Ian. Thank you. Derek, please.
Thanks, Alison. A couple of questions. First one for Laura. If I recall right, Laura, you were going to review previous chief exec decisions on this project. Have you carried that out, and are you content?
Yep, so you're absolutely right. I did agree to do that. I've done that. I've also had a hugely helpful walk about the facilities with Nick and Colin. Thank you for both colleagues for taking the time to do so, to do my own due diligence as best I can. Yes, and at this stage, I know there's more work to do. I think that's been well articulated already. It's detailed well in the paper. At this stage, from a due diligence perspective, I'm as comfortable as I can be, but there's more work to do. So I will, for obvious reasons, as accountable officer, stay very close to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. That's fine. And the second question, I think probably for Alan, have we completed our discussions with the contractor and reached agreement? So because we've got the figure there, so is that based on an agreement with the contractor?
Alan?
Yeah, Derek, yes. So we've done the heads of terms which we got agreed, and the figure within that covers that. The issue, as you could imagine, then happens is when it goes to the lawyers and goes back and forward, that's what's taking up the time. But as it stands just now, that figure's been agreed and the content of the heads of terms has been agreed. So it's just a finer detail now. But I think it's going back to Ian's point. There's not much we can control in regards to timelines of getting it finished. What we have done is we have been proactive and get a quick agreement with the contractor. And what we've also did is we've also stopped any further design change in the building to allow the building to be completed, other than, as Colin was saying, if something comes up through a KSAR review. So they're the only two things left that probably we still had a wee bit opportunity for it to to fall on and be delayed. We've now shut the door on both of these things to try and drive this forward. I think, given the report that we've just had earlier in regard, especially to the Baird maternity system, you know, it's key. You know, it's bigger choices we've got as a board other than a single project. It's, you know, the impact that the delays are having in the current state without forgetting the outcomes that will come out of the Scottish Hospital inquiry. So it's a real balance that we've had to do, but I think we're now just coming out the other end of that. And as Colin says, if we get the designs back for the contractor and agreed off, then we can hopefully march this forward now.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Alan. And Dennis, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks again, Colin. I suppose we're 5 months away from, you know, hopefully the getting into the anchor. I'm just wondering, have we already scheduled in a timetable for orientating our staff in terms of occupation of the building? And do we know what kind of impact that's going to have on our day-to-day business in our existing sites? Thank you.
Certainly, Dennis, I can answer that. Yes, we have a comprehensive functional commissioning period which follows on when we take occupation of the building, and that functional commissioning period involves equipping the building, you know, setting the building up specifically, and on orientation and focus group sessions within the building before it comes live to the service. And the service have been through quite a lengthy process, obviously because of delay, and have been acutely involved in that, developing that, and I would thank them for the time and the inconvenience that that's caused, but the time that they've put into that process. And notwithstanding the service, we've also planned in orientation and support for some of the partners, charitable partners and other third sector partners who have either direct or indirect involvement in the building going forward. So that's part of our functional commissioning programme, and I'm hopeful at some point we'll bring that to this board for an update like we have with the progression of the buildings.
Yeah, that's good. And it's just basically, I suppose, that's factored into any impact that it has on the day-to-day basis in terms of, you know, we've got to take staff from one area to another, and it's just that, you know, how do we factor in that impact and manage it? Thank you.
Thanks.
I notice Alan's got his hand up.
Yeah,
Alan.
Just before Alan comes in, I'll just say that, you know, the move plan in terms of the move from point A to point B, again, has been very well detailed, and the intention is that most of the move will happen over a weekend when the service is out of commission, and you know, that should be as minimal as possible disruption, but unfortunately these things never ever happen the way you'd like them, but the planning has been there, so fingers crossed.
Thank you, Colin. And Alan wanted to come in.
Yeah, just for overall in the Forester Hall campus, Dennis, if you're meaning that too, the operational area, that'll help us no end, because it'll allow us to get around the campus better, and it will also free up some space. We're not adding extra people onto the campus, we're moving people into a different area, which hopefully will help the acute team in that too with some of the challenges they've got. So I think it's all a positive bit rather than building a new building where you're bringing more and more people onto a congested site. So hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Thank you, Alan. I can't see any other indications, so we'll turn to the recommendations. We've got recommendations for assurance, and then a decision to acknowledge the updated project financial forecast for which funding has been approved by the Scottish Government through to completion, and approve this revised budget through to completion, and to endorse acknowledge the updated programme and dates of completion, endorse the progress for bringing the new facilities into operation. So can we make that decision? Can we agree the assurance and endorsement, please? Can we agree the recommendations? Thank you. So we've decided to acknowledge the updated project as it said. Thank you very much for that, for agreeing those recommendations. Oh, sorry, in future reporting, to note the commercial position and programme will feature in future reporting on the bed and anchor project to NHS Grampian Board. Agree that one as well. Sorry, I missed that one. Thank you. Okay, then we are moving to item 14, the approved committee forum and IJB minutes for noting. But before we turn to the papers, just to go through those, we've got a new item on the agenda here at 14.1, issues from committee chairs, which is an opportunity for any committee chairs to bring up anything that's happened since the approved minutes of the meeting that they would like to bring to the attention of the board at this stage as well, to make sure this is a way of responding to our timely information in terms of our governance process. So for timely information, John as Chair of Population Health and Sandy as Chair of PAFIC. Thank you. John, please.
Okay, well, we'll see if it's the right level of information that we want, but we'll give it a go. I think there's been some work around the development session for Population Health Committee, and then subsequently at our last meeting we had a report on the subject of a population health organisation for NHS Grampian, and it's a national initiative. So it's really just to highlight that ongoing work is taking place around shaping things for this. It is on the board forward planner to come to the full board, because that's where it would need to sit as something for the whole organisation and indeed for the whole system potentially. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to highlight that work and encourage people to take part in it through their various structures to inform the development. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, John. That's really helpful. Thank you. And Sandy, please.
Yeah, just I recall at the last chairs meeting, Alison, just the discussion about the importance of pre-committee processes in terms of planning, agenda setting, etc. But in addition, the minute that's on the agenda for today was November in PAFIC, and we were beginning to see far more focus on the sorts of information we required to seek assurance as a committee. We met just last month and that had improved, and today we now see it's moved forward further again. And I think just to acknowledge the work of Preston Gann and his colleagues in supporting those who are preparing reports for committee, and being able to kind of help focus the sort of information that we do require. We're now seeing a better quality of information, notwithstanding the point made by Alex that there's a need to refine that down because there is a huge volume of reporting at the moment, but we are getting there and staff are working really hard at it. So a noticeable improvement over the last 3 cycles of PAFIC, which is really encouraging.
Thank you very much for that, Sandy. Thank you. And Dennis, please.
And obviously as Chair of Clinical Governance, I suppose, I think probably for highlighting, because the lens very much from the Assurance Board is looking at clinical governance in terms of where we are. I think there's a vast improvement in terms of our overall governance, and we had a seminar which has concluded, and the seminar report highlighted quite a few areas of potential improvement that we'll discuss with our board secretary as well, because we're looking at shaping templates for taking reports back and ensuring that we've got the best level of governance, and we're actually structuring our reports to committee at a level that we actually need. And that kind of goes back to the point that Sandy was making just a second ago in terms of PAFIC. We're very interested in trying to ensure that we're asking the most appropriate questions and we're getting the information that we actually need back through committee. So it's just to say that it's work ongoing. We will be sharing the outcomes of our seminar and a wider group as well, and it is going to be, obviously our board secretary has a copy of that already, that came from our clinical governance meeting earlier this week. But thank you for that opportunity, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Thank you. And Joyce, please.
Oops. Thanks, Chair. And staff governance, we have a rolling programme of reporting from portfolios and directorates. And within this, we've been looking at improvements in terms of getting the data that we need. So it's not just fixed point data, but also looking at trends and at comparisons across the whole organisation. And furthermore, we have introduced a request back to the writers of reports where there have been questions from committee or further information required, that they either produce it by email quickly before the next meeting, or they present it back at the next meeting. So we're working with this to see what level of improvement this provides for our assurance purposes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joyce. Thank you. And Derek, please.
Right, thanks. Audit and Risk Committee, one of the issues that we look at is fraud. And just to make the board aware, Bert and I have been taking a bit of a deep dive into fraud, and recently met with the Counter Fraud Services people to get a bit of a greater understanding on how NHS Grampian and the Counter Fraud Services people relate, how they work together, with a particular look at, for us, investigations that are being carried out, fraud investigations that are being carried out internally within NHS Grampian, and how the people that are carrying out those investigations are supported to do so. And we did discover that there is in fact a procedure for people to follow, which I think is very helpful. But just to make people aware that that's the case. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those brief reports from everybody to bring us all up to date. Thank you. Then we'll just go through and note the papers that we have in front of us. First of all, the Audit and Risk Committee from the 29th of September. Can we just agree to note? Thank you. The NHS Grampian Charity Committee, 3rd of October 25. Noted. Thank you. The PAFIC and paper from 26th of November 25. Noted. Thank you. The Staff Governance Committee from the 30th of October 25. Noted. Thank you. The Area Clinical Forum from the 5th of November 25. Noted. Thank you. The Grampian Area Partnership Forum, the 20th of November 25. Noted. Thank you. And the 18th of December 25. Noted. Thank you. The Integration Joint Boards, Aberdeen City IJB, 2nd December 25. Noted. Thank you. Aberdeenshire IJB, first of all, the 8th of October 25. Noted. Thank you. And the 10th of December 25. Noted. Thank you. And then the Murray IJB, 27th of November 25. Noted. Thank you. Thank you very much for noting all those. I haven't got any other business for today's meeting. We do have the date of the next meeting is Thursday, the 19th of March. So thank you very much for your attendance today, and look forward to seeing everybody on the 19th of March. Appreciate that. For those of you attending the closed board meeting, can we meet at 14:35 to give us half an hour for a lunch break? Thank you. So 14:35, please. Thank you.